Chapter 806. Chu Luiyue left the imperial palace angrily and returned to his mansion. As soon as he sat down in the study, he heard that Wen Shiqi had come. He calmed down a little and asked someone to invite him in. He had originally wanted to see Wen Shiqi, and it was just in time for him to come. Wen Shiqi entered the door and saw Chu Luiyue sitting there with a livid face. He didn't know why he was angry, but he didn't care. He took 2 steps forward and saluted, saying, "Your Highness. Yuan Qing, please sit down. I have something to talk to you about." Chu Luiyue restrained the anger on his face and said. Wen Shiqi sat down, and the servant left the study after serving tea. When His Highness and Lord Wen were discussing, no one would be stupid enough to approach them. "Your Highness, please go ahead," Wen Shiqi said. "You go first. How's the matter I asked you to investigate?" Chu Luiyue took a breath in annoyance and suppressed his anger. "There's nothing about the matter I investigated before. We didn't find anything about what happened before. After all, it was something that happened more than 10 years ago. We can't find the person who sent the message at that time. We don't know who told heir of Duke Xing to change his destination and what he went to do. Why did he make such a decision for no reason? This person should not only be familiar with heir of Duke Xing, but also trusted." Wen Shiqi had been helping Chu Luiyue investigate the past of heir of Duke Xing these days. The more he investigated, the more mysterious he felt. Until now, he still had no clue. Chu Luiyue had originally sent someone to ask him to talk about the progress of the investigation, but he found nothing, so he specially made this trip. "If you can't find out the truth, don't investigate it," Chu Luiyue said coldly with a gloomy face. This matter was related to Xiao Wanru. Thinking of Xiao Wanru's attitude just now, he became angrier. After trying to calm down, he said, "Do you think it's good for me to marry the 5th Miss of Duke Xing's mansion?" There were too many twists in his words. Wen Shiqi was stunned for a moment and then said slowly, "Your Highness, do you want to marry the 5th Miss Xiao? She has Rui, and great elder princess behind her. Although Rui, and great elder princess has no power, her rank is high. Moreover, imperial grandmother is quite good to her. Maybe she can say something to her in the future," Chu Luiyue said. "The Empress Dowager never cares about who the throne is going to. Moreover, the great elder princess does not have any real power." Wen Shiqi's voice was gentle, and his handsome face was a little thoughtful as he analyzed the situation calmly. These words seemed to hit Chu Luiyue's Achilles' heel. For a moment, he was so depressed that he couldn't even say a word. After a long time, he said, "If it wasn't for the position of princess consort, she wouldn't be able to enter Prince Yu's mansion to be a concubine. Ben Wang has actually promised her the position of princess consort. I just asked her to wait a little, but she is not willing." Speaking of this, Chu Luiyue was a little annoyed. He had made it clear, which could be considered as expressing his feelings. He had never been so humble in front of a woman, but she didn't appreciate it. Thinking of this, he couldn't bear the anger that he had suppressed just now. On the way back just now, he was also wondering whether his words had made Xiao Wanru unhappy. Otherwise, how could he fail such a sure thing? Thinking about what he had said just now, Chu Luiyue felt that his previous proposal had made Xiao Wanru unhappy, so she said the words that embarrassed everyone. Was she so angry because he hadn't promised her the position of princess consort in the beginning? Chu Luiyue took it for granted that Xiao Wanru's refusal was also because he felt that his offer was excellent. Not only would he help Xiao Wanru's younger brother seize the title of Duke Xing's mansion in the future, but he would also help Xiao Wanru find out what had happened to her parents. If someone framed her parents, he would also help her. Even if Rui, and great princess, wanted to find out about this kind of thing, no one could do it. Based on these 2 points, Xiao Wanru had no reason to refuse. The reason why she refused now was also because of the order in which he had spoken before. 5th Miss Xiao wants the position of princess consort, but not the position of concubine? Wen Shiqi frowned and asked with an unpredictable look. "I've talked to her before, and that's what I mean. Yuan Qing, do you think it's good for me to marry her?" Can I marry her? Chu Luyue nodded. Wen Shiqi fell silent. After a long while, he raised the corners of his mouth and inexplicably said with a sarcastic smile, since she wants the position of Princess Yu, let her get what she wants. He paused here and said, but I'm afraid that it's hard for your highness to explain to concubine De and the emperor. Wen Shiqi reminded Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue frowned deeply. It was indeed a little difficult to marry Xiao Wanru at once. He had impulsively wanted to go to the empress to propose marriage, but Chu Luchen rejected him. Later, when he went to the empress, he mentioned it, but the empress avoided it and ignored it. After that, he slowly realized that he could take Xiao Wanru as a concubine first. A concubine was also on the imperial certificate, so it was not a disgrace to her identity. As for the position of Princess Yu in the future, he would not disagree. What if I insist on marrying her? Chu Luyue still didn't give up. If your highness insists on marrying her, concubine De will be furious and think that your highness has failed to live up to her painstaking efforts. The emperor has a better daughter from an aristocratic family to give to you. If you decide on your own, the emperor will be unhappy. Wen Shiqi calmly stated a fact. Chu Luyue was very clear about concubine De's painstaking efforts. At this time, it was best for him to listen to the emperor about his marriage. If he married Xiao Wanru, it was not in line with the emperor's wishes and would inevitably provoke the emperor's anger. At this critical time, he couldn't make any mistakes in marriage. Then she wants to be the princess. What should I do? Chu Luyue asked. Hearing Chu Luyue's repeated words, Wen Shiqi felt a little angry for no reason in his heart. He twitched the corner of his mouth, and there was a little disdain in his light smile. It turned out that she was just as so. She had been close to him before. When she first arrived in the capital, she deliberately approached him, even investigated him, and reminded him of the people around him. For this, he was grateful. Thinking about it now, he realized that she had taken a fancy to him at that time. As the daughter of Ningyuan army general, she had taken a fancy to him, the prime minister's son. Now that she had a high status, she no longer took a fancy to him, but to Prince Yu. She even asked Prince Yu for the position of princess. In vain, he had thought that she was a good girl who knew shame and etiquette, but it turned out that he had misjudged her. Inexplicably, there was a burst of anger in his heart. This anger came very abruptly, as if he had been betrayed. He only felt that there was a rush of anger in his heart, and he had to vent it out. Your Highness, if you really want her to be a concubine, you have to make a good plan. If she can't be the princess because of her own reasons, Rue, and great elder princess won't blame you. Moreover, she will think that your highness is affectionate and righteous. As for the empress and concubine De, you have no intention of disobeying them. He blurted out these words. When he finished speaking, he suddenly felt that the corner of his eyes twitched. He reached out to rub the corner of his eyes and closed his eyes. He was very tired, a kind of exhaustion from the bottom of his heart. He subconsciously covered his chest with his hands. At this moment, he actually felt very uncomfortable. Do you have a good idea? Chu Liyue's eyes lit up. Of course, this was the best way to make Xiao Wanru willingly marry into Prince Yu's mansion as a concubine, and Rue, and great elder princess would thank him. When Shiqi lowered his head and clenched his hands in his sleeves. He couldn't tell what he felt in his heart, but he felt stuffy and out of breath. Yuan Qing, do you have a good idea? Chu Liyue asked. He had never wanted a woman so much. Since he had taken a fancy to her, he could only marry her into his mansion. When Shiqi suppressed the irritation in his heart and said, the beauties are now in the palace. The palace guard of Chuxiu Palace should not be too strict, right? Although Chuxiu Palace is the main palace in the palace, there is no real master in it. Now there are beauties living in it, so it is not strictly guarded. Chu Liyue said. When Shiqi had always been strong-willed. He suppressed a trace of worry in his heart and continued to ask, Your Highness, do you have a way to put some men's things in 5th Miss Xiao's room? Put men's things in her room. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and nodded. This was not a difficult thing. The beauties learned etiquette and palace rules together in the morning, so it was indeed possible to find someone to put things in Xiao Wanru's room. It can be done, and no one will know. But what should we do next? Ask the nanny in charge to check the room and you can find men's things. Your Highness, if you appear at this time and you can make this thing your own, it will be a good thing. Wen Shiqi said. In fact, the first part of this matter was not difficult. If she wanted to bribe a few people from Chuxiu Palace, she didn't even need to say that Chu Luiyue had sent them. She just needed to say that they were instructed by other beauties in the palace. It was impossible to find out that Chu Luiyue was involved. It was not easy to find out the next part of the investigation and coincidentally help them. However, it was not impossible as long as it was handled properly. If Chu Luiyue said that the man's things in Xiao Wanru's room were his, he could save Xiao Wanru and prevent her from entering Prince Yu's mansion. Rui, and great elder princess, would even be grateful to Chu Luiyue. Good idea. Chu Luiyue slapped the table and laughed. He only felt that the sullenness in his heart suddenly disappeared. But Yuan Qing, please help me make a plan for the specific matters. Your Highness, if you really have an idea, you can indeed make a plan. But you have to make a good plan for this matter and never let anyone find out. Wen Shiqi felt more and more annoyed. He stood up, cupped his hands to Chu Luiyue and said, Your Highness, I still have something to do, so I have to go first. If you want, I will help you make a plan first. Chu Luiyue wanted to stop Wen Shiqi, but seeing that he looked a little upset, he thought that he had something important to do, so he could only nod and say, Okay, then you can go back first. If you are free tomorrow, you can come to discuss it. Chu Luiyue felt that this matter was not urgent, but he did not expect that it would come to a conclusion that night. The Empress Dowager's decree arrived at Duke Xing's mansion, and Chu Luiyue and Xiao Wanru were granted a marriage. That night, Xiao Wanru came out of Chuxiu Palace and returned to Duke Xing's mansion. Chapter 807. Xiao Wanru returned to Duke Xing's mansion that night. She and Chu Luqian had been engaged, so it was meaningless to stay in the palace. The Empress Dowager also wanted her to go back to the mansion first. That night, a small sedan chair went out of the palace gate. There was already a carriage of Duke Xing's mansion waiting outside the palace gate. Xiao Wanru got on the carriage and returned to Duke Xing's mansion. When she arrived at Duke Xing's mansion, it was already late, but the gate was brightly lit. Xiao Wanru's carriage turned into the gate of the mansion, and the lights outside were mostly extinguished. Xiao Wanru got off the carriage, and Nanny Yu had been waiting outside. She stepped forward with a smile and said, Fifth Miss, old madam has been waiting for you in the mansion for a long time. Please come with me. Xiao Wanru nodded and took Yujie to the Chuntang courtyard where old madam lived. The Chuntang courtyard was also brightly lit. All the servant girls and old maids who saw Xiao Wanru were respectful. There were 4 misses who entered the palace for the consort selection, and now only the 5th miss could come back safely and successfully be selected. Even though they used to look down on the 5th miss, they did not dare to be presumptuous at this time. Old madam sat in the main room with a happy face. When she saw Xiao Wanru come in, her eyes turned red. She wiped the tears at the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, nodded and said kindly, It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. 5th miss, before you came back, old madam had been missing you. She was afraid that something might have happened to you in the palace. The 4 misses of our family didn't go well in the consort selection this time. If something happened to the 5th miss, old madam would be very worried. Nanny Yu said with her eyes turning red, as if she really missed Xiao Wanru as much as old madam did. Don't worry, old madam. I'm fine. Xiao Wanru answered softly. It's good that you're fine. Nothing is more convenient in the palace than at home. It seems that you've lost weight. Old madam sighed and asked Xiao Wanru to sit down beside her. Don't be so distant. Although you've been living in the Yuhui nunnery before, you're still my granddaughter. Don't treat me like an outsider and call me old madam. Yes, fifth miss should call her grandmother. We can't be estranged just because we haven't been together for a long time. Nanny Yu also nodded repeatedly and sighed with emotion. Looking at the master and the servant, Xiao Wanru only felt funny. She had called her old madam for a long time. She hadn't said anything before, but now she became pretentious and said that they were estranged. She had been estranged for a long time. Yes, Grandma. Xiao Wanru said softly. It was not the time to argue about this. Moreover, it was just a title. When old madam didn't care about it, she had called it this way. Now it was mentioned again and again, so she couldn't turn a blind eye to it. What happened to your eldest sister? Why did she suddenly enter the palace? When did she contact the emperor? Old madam wiped away her tears and asked. So this was the most important topic. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart, rolled her watery eyes, and said, Grandma, this matter, actually, Xiao Wanru said as she looked at both sides. Old madam understood and waved to the people on both sides. The servant girls and old maids on both sides left one by one, leaving only Nanny Yu and Yujie to stand behind them to serve. After all the servants left, old madam's face darkened and she asked, Tell me, what happened to First Miss? How could such a thing happen to her eldest granddaughter, who had always valued etiquette the most? In the past, Madam of the Jiang family had repeatedly said that Ru would either marry Prince Yu or Prince Zhou in the future. How could she marry the emperor and take the initiative to seduce the emperor? When she heard this from her second son, she almost couldn't believe it was true and fainted at once. After she woke up with great difficulty, she burst into tears. She had cultivated her eldest granddaughter for so many years, but she was ruined in such a way. It was like gouging out her heart. How could she not be devastated? Eldest sister used drugs. She wanted to make Prince Xian faint. Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said slowly, I didn't expect the emperor to come. Her words were short but direct. Hearing her words, Empress Dowager's face turned pale and her hands and feet trembled. She had thought that Xiao Yanru was really wronged, but now it seemed that it was not the case. Therefore, her eldest granddaughter was not wronged. She did do it, but accidentally made a mistake. The royal father and son, no matter who they were, couldn't be schemed against by others. Why did she turn to Prince Xian? No, there are still Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, right? There was no one else in the room. Although old madam was afraid, she said it directly. Xiao Yanru had never taken a fancy to Prince Xian, so how could she seduce Prince Xian? Prince Yu and Prince Zhou fought because of eldest sister, and they said. Xiao Wanru paused for a moment. What did they say? Old madam asked anxiously. Something had happened to Xiao Yanru before, and she originally knew something about it. The news from the palace said that Prince Yu and Prince Zhou had a dispute because of Xiao Yanru. Xiao Yanru accidentally hurt herself when trying to mediate, so she was given the honor to rest in the Empress's palace and be sent out of the palace when she was almost recovered. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be a fight. It was not a good thing for two brothers to fight over a woman in ordinary families, let alone in the palace. Although old madam asked this question, she was desperate in her heart. Her eldest granddaughter was really useless now. Prince Yu said that Prince Zhou and eldest sister had an affair and wanted to plot against him in the past. Prince Zhou said that Prince Yu and eldest sister had been in touch for a long time for him. The emperor was furious and wanted to punish eldest sister, so eldest sister committed suicide to apologize. Fortunately, she was saved. At that time, it happened in the Empress's Fengyi Palace. In order not to let others know and spread the scandal, eldest sister stayed in the Fengyi Palace to recuperate. Xiao Wanru stated. This was the truth. There were so many things in it, and they were all things that she didn't know. Old madam's lips trembled twice, and her face was almost pale. She tried to say something, but she felt dizzy and her vision suddenly darkened. She heard a voice calling her from far and near. Fifth miss, please save old madam. Seeing that she couldn't wake old madam up, Nanny Yu hurriedly turned around and pulled Xiao Wanru's hand, trying to pull her to old madam to see the reason. Do you still have the old medicine? If you do, give grandma 2 pills. Xiao Wanru said calmly. Old madam had made the old medicine, and she didn't want to take it. If it's still not good, it's better to go to the palace to ask an imperial physician. At that time, she did it to save people in an emergency, but now she didn't want to have too much to do with old madam. Moreover, she could see that old madam was obviously not as ill as before. The medicine was beside her, and she would be fine after taking 2 pills. What happened to Xiao Yenru had happened. Xiao Wanru didn't believe that old madam hadn't guessed it. She might not know the specific things, but the final outcome had been determined. Old madam, who had experienced so many ups and downs, couldn't be ignorant of it. She couldn't stand it and fainted at once. Nanny Yu hurriedly went to get the medicine and fed water and medicine to old madam. Only then did old madam slowly recover. She opened her eyes and looked around, revealing a kind of powerlessness and sadness of an old woman. After asking Nanny Yu to help her up, she looked at Xiao Wanru and felt extremely sad. She reached out and patted the edge of the bed, asking Xiao Wanru to sit down. Then she said slowly, "Your big sister has been raised by my side since she was a child, so I naturally treat her differently. When she was a child, she liked to dress up as a man. She looked like your father. At that time, your father was not around. When I looked at her, I felt that I saw your father when he was a child. So I gradually fell in love with her." Speaking of this, old madam burst into tears. Nanny Yu hurriedly handed her a handkerchief and comforted her. "Old madam, don't be sad. I know you. If First Miss hadn't dressed up as a boy and looked so similar to Child, you wouldn't have missed Child and cried from time to time. Fortunately, First Miss was by your side, so you slowly got over it." Xiao Wanru lowered her head, looked at the floor in front of her, and raised the corners of her mouth silently. These words were said to her. Was she trying to explain to her why old madam favored Xiao Yenru so much? At the moment of her rebirth, she didn't care who old madam favored. The bloody facts in the last life had made her see through old madam. What was more, after her rebirth, old madam showed no mercy to her when she attacked her. The so-called affection for her father had long disappeared after being schemed against again and again. "Grandma, don't be sad. It's all over." She raised her head and smiled gently with a little tiredness. Her face was a little pale, but her face was soft. "Well, don't cry. I just think that your big sister has done such a stupid thing in the end after being raised by me for so many years. However, you have never been raised by me, but you are obedient and sensible. I neglected you in the past, but I won't do it in the future. Now your third aunt is in charge of the mansion. If you need anything, you can ask someone to go to your third aunt. If you can't save face, you can come to me." Old madam said with a kind face and seemed to care about her very much. This would only make Xiao Wanru feel more disgusted, but she didn't show it on her face. She still nodded softly, neither too enthusiastic nor too cold. After the grandmother and granddaughter talked intimately for a while, old madam considerately asked Xiao Wanru to go back to have a rest. After coming out of old madam's courtyard, Xiao Wanru returned to her own courtyard. The courtyard had already been prepared. After freshening up, Xiao Wanru sat down at ease and had a sumptuous dinner prepared for her in the mansion early. This was the most sumptuous meal she had had since she entered Duke Xing's mansion. It could be seen that her master had specially instructed her to have it. After eating, she sat under the window and wrote a piece of paper. After it dried, she put the ring she had picked up before into it and wrapped it up. It was time to settle accounts. What belonged to her should belong to her. She was unwilling to give it up at all. Chapter 808. In her last life, she was schemed against. Not only did she give up everything she had, but she also lost her life. Now that Bloodthirsty had returned, how could she leave them any chance? The light outside the window was flickering, which seemed to come from a far place. It was already late, and most of the lights in the mansion had been turned off, but the light was still on in one area. It seemed to be a tall building. That should be the outer courtyard. How could there be someone in the outer courtyard at this time? Xiao Wanru narrowed her eyes and looked around, but she didn't care. Duke Xing's mansion was strange to her, so strange that she still didn't know the layout of Duke Xing's mansion even though she had been in it for a period of time. What's over there? Why is there still light? Xiao Wanru pointed casually and said. Yu Jie came over to take a look and also shook her head. It seems to be in the outer courtyard. I don't know. That direction seems to be the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion. Could it be that it's not our mansion but the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion? Xiao Wanru thought for a while and laughed at herself. She was not familiar with Duke Xing's mansion in this life, nor was she familiar with Deputy Prime Minister's mansion in the last life. In the last life, although she married Wen Shiqi, she basically served Wen Shiqi in his courtyard and rarely went out, so she didn't know some places in Deputy Prime Minister's mansion at all. But that place really looked like it was in Deputy Prime Minister's mansion. The light in the distance was flickering, and she couldn't see it clearly. Moreover, it suddenly went out, and the whole courtyard was dark. Tomorrow morning, find a way to give this to Nanny Gao, who is serving Grandma, and ask her to give it to Grandma. Xiao Wanru collected her thoughts and turned her head to give an order. Miss, will Nanny Gao come tomorrow? Yu Jie looked at the ring rolled up in the paper on the desk and asked in surprise. Yes, Grandma will definitely come to have a look tomorrow. Xiao Wanru nodded. Only a few people knew the news of her bestowal of marriage today. Tomorrow, everyone would know it. Her grandma would definitely come to have a look and support her so that no one would look down on her. Although she was not valued by Duke Xing's mansion, her maternal grandmother still doted on her. At this time, her maternal grandmother immediately stood behind her, which represented her maternal grandmother's attitude. A few days ago, Duke Xing's mansion had kept the first miss, who was said to be likely to become the prince's wife, in the imperial palace and made her a treasure forest. This seemed to be a favor from the royal family, but in fact, it was a slap in the face. As the eldest daughter of lineal descent in Duke Xing's mansion, she was just a treasure forest. It was not only a slap in Xiao Yanru's face, but also the face of the entire Duke Xing's mansion. When Duke Xing went to the imperial court, he felt ashamed. Many of his colleagues, who had been close to him, also became much colder, and some even mentioned it to him with a faint smile. No matter how steady Xiao Jing was, he had been living like a year recently. Fortunately, he always had a smile on his face. Even if he didn't smile much now, he inexplicably made people feel very gentle. Many people secretly guessed that Duke Xing's mansion was going to decline and that Xiao Jing would also be in big trouble. Although Duke Xing had been popular in the past, he had made many political enemies in secret. Seeing that he was losing power, many people were secretly happy, and some people would say some sarcastic words in a sarcastic tone. Unexpectedly, in just a few days, the feng shui immediately changed. Early in the morning, everyone knew that the Empress Dowager had issued a decree yesterday to grant the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion to Prince Chen as Princess Chen. Who was Prince Chen? Prince Chen's identity was the most special. He was the legitimate son of the former emperor and the only son. He was almost the crown prince of the former emperor. Later, the throne inexplicably fell into the hands of the current emperor. It was not impossible for brothers to inherit the throne, but it was more reasonable for the current emperor not to pass the throne to his biological son. Moreover, this biological son was the legitimate son of the former emperor. In history, there were cases in which the empress inherited the throne with a young prince in her arms. Even if the prince was only born for one day, it could not be ignored. However, after the death of the former emperor, the emperor took out the former emperor's posthumous edict, saying that it was the will of the former emperor. He didn't want to see the country fall into the hands of an ignorant child, so he wanted to pass the throne to the current emperor. At that time, the emperor had actually been powerful. Even without this posthumous edict, he had the ability to snatch the throne. Now with this posthumous edict, it was more justifiable. After killing several ministers who had expressed their views forcefully, the emperor ascended the throne and granted the former emperor's legitimate son the title of Prince Chen. In order to show his favor, he allowed him to be ranked as a prince together with his son, and he was the third prince. The other princes, such as Prince Yu and Prince Zhou, were conferred the title of prince after they grew up. Only he had been conferred the title of prince early, opened a mansion, and granted him the former Nangong to live. The Nangong was closely connected to the imperial palace, which had the same meaning as the East Palace. If it weren't for the fact that Prince Chen's health was really poor later, everyone would suspect that the emperor intended to pass the throne to him. Of course, everyone also thought that this was just on the surface. In fact, it was unlikely to be true. Later, everyone was guessing when Prince Chen would die. The existence of Prince Chen was an eyesore to the emperor. No one could keep such a son of the former emperor by his side, reminding him that he had not obtained the throne properly at that time. But to everyone's surprise, the emperor was very kind to Prince Chen, even more than the other princes. Not only did he treat him well, but also the Empress Dowager. They all doted on Prince Chen wholeheartedly, so that although Prince Chen was in poor health, he had survived to the present, and now it seemed that he had recovered a lot. He could also hold on until the end of the court session. Although he was still sitting in the chair, he felt much better. Of course, it was just much better. It seemed that something bad might happen at any time. It was basically impossible for him to marry and have children. Although it was said that the consort selection was for Prince Chen, everyone thought that the possibility was not very high. Prince Chen was in poor health. If he married again, it was hard to say how long he could live. No matter whose daughter married him, she would not have a good ending. But even if she did not have a good ending, she was still Prince Chen's wife. She had a noble status and might be favored by the emperor and the Empress Dowager. If she could really give birth to a son or a daughter, she would almost have no worries for the rest of her life. Of course, this was just a guess. Prince Chen was tired even to listen to the court affairs. The so-called giving birth and raising children was just a thought and could not be taken seriously. Everyone knew that Prince Chen was in poor health and might not live long. But it could not deny the emperor's affection for Prince Chen. Marrying the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion to Prince Chen showed that the emperor attached great importance to Duke Xing's mansion. Therefore, the colleagues around Xiao Jing of Duke Xing became enthusiastic again. After the court session, they all asked him about this matter and congratulated him again and again. They were very happy. Xiao Jing also put on a smile on his face and spoke politely to his colleagues. But he saw Prince Yu walk past them, wrapped in coldness. Several ministers couldn't help stepping aside and looking at each other. They didn't understand who had offended Prince Yu. They thought about it carefully. There was nothing important today in the court session. Only Commandery Prince Qing said some things that he had found out that day. Could it be related to Prince Yu? After Prince Yu was Prince Shou. Although these two princes seemed to get along well on the surface, they were actually not. In the past, when they went out of the court session, they often came one after another, so everyone was used to it. As for the last prince, Prince Chen, because of his poor health, he walked very slowly. Everyone could understand that he was the last one. Sometimes Prince Chen was very indifferent and even a little gloomy, but most of the time he looked very gentle and elegant. In addition, he was the legitimate son of the former emperor. In fact, some ministers in the court were secretly on his side. Seeing him come out, many people made way for him. Chu Luchen seemed to be in a good mood. With a slight smile in his handsome eyes, he nodded at the ministers who made way for him, and then walked out with Xiao Xuanzi, who was guarding outside the hall. Prince Chen should like this marriage. Everyone thought so. For Prince Chen, it had long been said that the Empress Dowager wanted to marry a princess for him, either to continue the family line or to make Prince Chen's mansion more powerful, but it had never happened. It was said that Prince Chen was unwilling to marry a princess. Now he was willing to marry a princess for the sake of fifth Miss Xiao. From this point of view, the emperor was not completely disappointed with Duke Xing's mansion. For the sake of Prince Chen, the emperor would not do anything to Duke Xing's mansion. Thinking of this, everyone became more and more enthusiastic about Duke Xing. Even a few ministers who didn't talk much with each other in the past came over to join in the fun and congratulate him. The ministers laughed and talked together and walked out of the palace. In Duke Xing's mansion, Rui and Great Elder Princess came early in the morning. When she arrived at Duke Xing's mansion, she first went to visit Old Madam. Old Madam greeted Rui and Great Elder Princess with a smile. This time, the atmosphere seemed to be less tense. They looked like two much calmer old ladies. Since they got married, they had been in a hostile position. It was rare for them to sit down so calmly. Seeing such a calm Rui and Great Elder Princess, Old Madam felt inexplicably scared. Today, Rui and Great Elder Princess was so kind that her eyelids kept twitching. She always felt that something bad would happen, so she became more and more cautious when dealing with it. Rui and Great Elder Princess took a sip of tea and put down the teacup in her hand. She glanced around and asked with a smile, "I heard that the third madam of your mansion is in charge now. Why don't I see her now?" "Third madam is in poor health. I asked her to deal with affairs in her courtyard." Old Madam also put down the teacup in her hand and answered with a smile. "Zhuozhuo has been married to Prince Chen. Time is a little tight. Your mansion only needs to sort out Qinghua's dowry at that time and give half to Zhuozhuo, the other half to Hao, and I will add the rest." Rui and Great Elder Princess stopped asking about the third madam and looked at Old Madam with burning eyes. His words made Old Madam feel uncomfortable all over. Chapter 809. Infanta Qinghua had a dowry certificate, and the dowry was not small. It was the emperor who granted the marriage, so she naturally got married with a dowry of 5 kilometers. The palace also added a lot of dowry. This dowry was the first in the capital city. However, after Infanta Qinghua left, the second branch was in charge. Old Madam really did not dare to ask how much dowry was left. In fact, not only the second branch, but also herself. After Infanta Qinghua died, Old Madam divided up Infanta Qinghua's dowry. Now there was not much left in the warehouse. Basically, almost all the good ones were divided. She had some, and the second branch had some. But it was not as good as the dowry of 5 kilometers for Infanta Qinghua. The second branch did not have much dowry when Infanta Qinghua got married. The Jiang family was not a very rich aristocratic family. Moreover, the Jiang family had been raised in Duke Xing's mansion for a reason. Old Madam coughed in a low voice and said, "How can we ask Great Elder Princess to do this? The fifth daughter is the miss of our Duke Xing's mansion, so she should follow the rules of Duke Xing's mansion. Moreover, she is going to marry Prince Chen. Of course, our mansion should give her a generous dowry." Giving a generous dowry was originally her real intention. Xiao Wanru married Prince Chen, and Duke Xing's mansion recovered at this time. Old Madam did not dare to neglect this matter. But it was just a generous dowry, which was different from the dowry of 5 kilometers that Infanta Qinghua had prepared for her. Old Madam meant that she would prepare a new dowry for Xiao Wanru, and it would be a dowry that would not make people feel that it was poor, but it had nothing to do with the dowry of Infanta Qinghua. Perhaps there were some things in Infanta Qinghua's dowry, but not all of them. She felt that Rui and Great Elder Princess would definitely agree with her, and she had also expressed her intention to make friends with Xiao Wanru. Unexpectedly, Rui and Great Elder Princess's face darkened and she said, "What do you mean, Old Madam? Why don't you give Qing'er's dowry to Zhuozhuo? Hao is a boy, so he and Zhuozhuo can get half of the dowry. It's not that we don't give it to fifth miss, but that our mansion will add some more," Old Madam said tactfully. After Xiao Yanru's incident, it was inconvenient for her to confront Rui and Great Elder Princess head-on. "Thank you, Old Madam. I happen to be here today. Please ask the third madam of your mansion to come and check Qinghua's dowry. Then I will divide it into 2 and divide it for them, so that they won't quarrel with each other in the future." Rui and Great Elder Princess nodded and said naturally. Old Madam opened her mouth, suppressed the anger in her heart, and explained gently, "Great Elder Princess, I mean that we will add more dowry to Infanta Qinghua's dowry. Infanta Qinghua's dowry will be given to Infanta Qinghua and her brother. But Great Elder Princess, it seems that we have done something wrong to Infanta Qinghua's dowry when you come here and divide the dowry." What a joke! Old Madam's tone was completely different from that of Old Madam to Rui and Great Elder Princess in the past. It seemed that Old Madam had changed into another person. She also spoke in a gentle voice, as if she didn't want to quarrel with Rui and Great Elder Princess. If it was in the past, Rui and Great Elder Princess would not go too far when Old Madam showed weakness. But when she thought of what Nanny Gao said on the note and the ring, Great Elder Princess was furious. For so many years, she had only paid attention to Howarth's affairs, but she did not expect that Duke Xing's mansion was so shallow that they even coveted their daughter-in-law's dowry. Howard was the only one in the eldest branch, and he was raised in Duke Xing's mansion and was close to Old Madam. As long as Howard was happy, Great Elder Princess would not go too far. She had thought that Old Madam would not use Qinghua's dowry. With Old Madam watching it and Howard taking it in the future, Duke Xing's mansion would not do such a thing. She did not expect that Duke Xing's mansion not only did it, but also went too far. Great Elder Princess remembered that ring, which was specially added by her, just because Qinghua said she liked this ring. She did not expect that now it was wrapped in a piece of paper and sent to her. As long as she thought about how this old woman had not only harmed her daughter and son-in-law, but had also embezzled her daughter's dowry and even had the intention to raise her grandson into a cripple, the Great Elder Princess could not help but burn with anger. Thinking of what her granddaughter had said to her in the letter, Great Elder Princess suppressed her anger. However, she could not show a happy expression on her face. "Old Madam, I just want to see Qinghua's dowry." It seemed that she had to see the dowry today. "Great Elder Princess, this is not polite," Old Madam said with a smile on her face. She could not stand it. "Not polite? I just want to see the dowry I sent to my daughter. Is it not polite? Could it be that Duke Xing's mansion has used this batch of dowry?" Great Elder Princess snorted coldly and looked at Old Madam's face sharply. "Duke Xing's mansion hates my daughter marrying into Duke Xing's mansion, but at the same time, they use my daughter's dowry with a clear conscience. How can there be such a cheap thing in this world? Even if my daughter is gone, there are still Zhuozhuo and Howard. It is not your turn to deal with the dowry." The more Rui and Great Elder Princess said, the angrier she became. She suddenly stood up and stared at Old Madam coldly. "Let's go to the palace and reason with the Empress Dowager. Let's say that you have coveted Qinghua's dowry and Zhuozhuo's dowry. Let's see how the Empress Dowager will deal with it." Seeing that she actually wanted to pull her, Old Madam panicked. She hurriedly stepped back and said anxiously, "Great Elder Princess, just say it. Why do you need to do it? If I don't do it, will your Duke Xing's mansion return it?" Great Elder Princess said sternly. "Great Elder Princess, don't slander me. Don't talk nonsense about this kind of thing without evidence. Even in front of the Empress Dowager, I will say the same. Is it wrong for our mansion to add some dowry for the fifth daughter? How can you say such nonsense?" Old Madam was also angry and said coldly to Great Elder Princess. Her words also sounded reasonable. In front of the Empress Dowager, she only needed to insist on saying so. Old Madam secretly made up her mind. "Old Madam, let me ask you again. Is my daughter's dowry in the warehouse?" Great Elder Princess pressed. "Of course it is in Qinghua's own warehouse. If you don't believe it, you can ask the supervisor to come over and ask." At that time, Infanta Qinghua left, but the supervisor was sent by your mansion as a dowry. Great Elder Princess should trust the people in your mansion very much," Old Madam said coldly. In fact, she had prepared for some things long ago. She was afraid that Rui and Great Elder Princess would come to make trouble after hearing something. "Bring her here." Rui and Great Elder Princess said coldly and sat down again. Old Madam breathed a sigh of relief and winked at Nanny Yu. Nanny Yu nodded and went outside to call the old maid who guarded Infanta Qinghua's private warehouse. The old maid came very quickly and arrived soon. After bowing to Great Elder Princess and Old Madam, she stood aside. Great Elder Princess looked at the old maid up and down and did not recognize her. However, Nanny Gao whispered a few words in her ear, letting her know that this old maid was indeed Infanta Qinghua's dowry. Her whole family was married to Infanta Qinghua, and she followed Infanta Qinghua to Duke Xing's mansion. However, after staying in Duke Xing's mansion for so many years, she had long forgotten who her old master was. However, she knew it from her indifferent face to Great Elder Princess. "Are you Qinghua's servant or Duke Xing's mansion servant?" Great Elder Princess's cold eyes fell on the old maid, which made the old maid feel scared. She hurriedly lowered her head and said, "Great Elder Princess, I am Infanta Qinghua's servant. I came here with Infanta Qinghua." "So, your indenture contract is still with Qinghua?" Rui and Great Elder Princess asked again. This question made the old maid shiver. Of course, her indenture contract was not with the first branch and had been taken over by the second branch. However, she did not dare to say this and could only nod. "Old Madam, Qinghua's things are still with her, right? Let me see how many indenture contracts she has with her servants. If they are not with her, we will deal with them as escaped servants." Rui and Great Elder Princess ignored the old maid and turned to Old Madam and said coldly. The old maid's face immediately turned pale. If she was treated as an escaped servant, she would be sentenced. For a moment, she looked at Old Madam with pleading eyes. Old Madam coughed twice in a low voice and said unhappily, "Great Elder Princess, Qinghua has been gone for so many years. Even if we find the indenture contracts of the servants she brought at that time, it is unlikely that we can find them in a short time. You have to let us sort out Qinghua's belongings first. We can't make a mess because we don't have them for the time being." Old Madam meant to delay it for a while. After all, Ruyan Great Elder Princess was not a member of Duke Xing's mansion. She couldn't keep an eye on Duke Xing's mansion all day long. After delaying it again and again, she would disappear. "Lost?" Great Elder Princess said coldly. "Not lost. Maybe we can't find them for a while." Old Madam coughed again. "In this case, take the servants brought by Qinghua at that time. Let's go to the government office to file a case and buy a new indenture contract for them." Rui and Great Elder Princess said firmly. After the new indenture contract was bought, these people would certainly return to the hands of Great Elder Princess. At that time, Great Elder Princess could only decide whether they were alive or dead. Even Old Madam could not say anything about it. The old maid was so shaken that she almost couldn't stand, and her eyes became more and more eager. Infanta Qinghua came here with her dowry. After so many years, few of them were loyal. They had surrendered to Duke Xing's mansion early and became the servants of the second branch of the Jiang family. How could they be willing to surrender to Rui and Great Elder Princess's mansion? Moreover, Great Elder Princess came aggressively. At first glance, they knew that she was here to denounce them. If Great Elder Princess knew the inside story, they were afraid that they would even lose their lives. "Great Elder Princess, it's not that we can't find them. We just haven't found them for a while." "Great Elder Princess, why are you so aggressive? Is it because you are dissatisfied with the fifth daughter's marriage that you make such a big noise and let the people in the capital see the fifth daughter as a joke?" Old Madam became tough and said coldly. At this time, she had to be tough. If she blindly obeyed Great Elder Princess, there would really be a big problem. Infanta Qinghua's servants were already the servants of Duke Xing's mansion. They also knew something about Duke Xing's mansion. If they were returned to the hands of Great Elder Princess would inevitably find many problems. She would not return these people. Chapter 8:10. The atmosphere between the two of them immediately became tense. Neither of them gave in. Great Elder Princess suddenly smiled, took out a ring from her bosom, and put it on the table. "Old Madam, I picked this up at the gate of your courtyard when I entered the mansion." Seeing Great Elder Princess suddenly calm down, old madam had a bad feeling. Her eyes involuntarily fell on the ring in front of her, and she was inexplicably flustered. There was a dark red gem in the ring, surrounded by a circle of fine pearls, and a piece of red stamen in the white jade, like a simple but extremely gorgeous flower. She looked at it for a while, but did not recognize it. She raised her head and looked at Great Elder Princess with a blank face. She had seen a lot of jewelry, but she only felt that the ring in front of her was a little familiar, but she could not remember where she saw it. She frowned tightly. "Old madam, why don't you pick it up and have a look?" Great Elder Princess raised the corner of her mouth and said sarcastically. Old madam reached out, picked up the ring, and looked at it carefully. When she saw the mark inside clearly, her face changed dramatically. "Old madam, can't you recognize that this is a thing made by the palace? This kind of thing made by the palace will have a picture book when Qinghua married here. I'm afraid that the one in your mansion has been lost. But it doesn't matter. I have it here. If you don't believe it, you can go to the palace to check. This kind of thing made by the palace is also recorded in the palace." Great Elder Princess calmly reminded old madam. Old madam's hands trembled, and she tried to steady them. She raised her head, and her face became pale. "What do you mean, Great Elder Princess?" "Old madam, I also want to ask you, what do you mean? You said that Qinghua's dowry is in her private vault, and you found an old maid from nowhere and said that she is Qinghua's maid. Qinghua has been gone for so many years. Even if she is her maid, she may have been trained by you. Now I want to open Qinghua's private vault to have a look. I have reason to suspect that Qinghua's private vault has been embezzled by your Duke Xing's mansion. The ring is clear evidence," Great Elder Princess said in an imposing manner. "The ring made by the palace should fall on the edge of old madam's yard. It can be seen that Qinghua's things have already been lost. I don't know if they are all in old madam's private vault." With the evidence, the Great Elder Princess became even more unyielding. The ring given by her granddaughter was indeed a dowry for her daughter. Not to mention that her daughter lost her life, even her dowry was swallowed by Duke Xing's mansion. Great Elder Princess wished she could come over and slap old madam hard. It was all because of this old beggar. If it wasn't for her, her daughter would be fine, and there wouldn't be so many things happening to her. It was fine that this old beggar didn't repent, but she actually caused such trouble. She raised a crippled grandson, mistreated her granddaughter, and now she actually dared to do such a thing. Old madam put down her hand heavily, and her face turned blue, white, and then red. She was not ashamed, but furious. How dare the servants in her courtyard steal this kind of thing? Moreover, they fell in front of Rui and Great Elder Princess. Wasn't it obvious that they wanted to stir up trouble? But now it was not the time to punish the servants. Old madam suppressed the anger in her heart and slowly showed a smile on her face. She was no longer tough, and she couldn't be tough at this time. Great Elder Princess, don't worry. I will find out this matter and definitely give you an explanation. 3 days, I only need 3 days to reorganize it. When I finish, I will ask Great Elder Princess to come over. Old madam had to give in and give a deadline. This time was different from the past. There was a real hammer, and old madam couldn't avoid it. That's better. I will visit you 3 days later. Now I'm going to see Zhuozhuo. Great Elder Princess didn't want to see old madam's fake face anymore, so she stood up coldly. Send Great Elder Princess out. Old madam ordered tiredly. Great Elder Princess glanced at her coldly, turned around, and followed the old maid who led the way out. In the room, old madam said to Nanny Yu, search the whole courtyard to see if there is anyone with dirty hands. After finding them, sell them immediately. She thought that all the servants in the courtyard belonged to her and were loyal to her. She didn't expect that such a thing would happen, so that she was in a passive position now. Yes, old madam, I will check it right away. But what about Infanta Qinghua's dowry? Some of it was taken away by madam. Nanny Yu reminded old madam in embarrassment. Some of it was in old madam's hands, and some was in the hands of Madam of Duke Xing, Madam Jiang. Madam Jiang was not in the mansion now, so it was unrealistic to invite her back. I will tell Jing, or later, and ask him to find someone to check Madam Jiang's private warehouse and take out all the things in it to see if we can make up for it. If there is still something missing, we can only make up for her before we talk about other things. Old Madam said sternly. Madam Jiang had been in charge of Duke Xing's mansion for a long time. She must have some money in her hands for so many years, so she could use it to make up for it first. Nanny Yu looked at old madam and wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. In the end, she bowed her head and left without saying anything. Although second Madam Jiang was not kind, what would first miss and first young master do if all her private warehouse was divided? Of course, as a servant, she should not kiss these things. When great elder princess arrived at the Piaoyuan courtyard, Xiao Wanru had already received the news and was waiting at the gate of the courtyard. Seeing Rui, and great elder princess coming over, she came up with a smile on her fair face, bowed sideways to Rui, and great elder princess respectfully, and said in a sweet voice, "Grandma." Seeing her little granddaughter and thinking of the evil appearance of old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion, great elder princess felt pity, pain, and regret. If she had insisted on not agreeing at that time, her daughter would have been fine, and her granddaughter would have experienced hardships. She reached out to take Xiao Wanru's hand and led her to the courtyard. "Are you used to living here? If you don't feel well, can you follow me to live in great elder princess's mansion for a few days?" "Grandma, don't worry. I live well. I want to go to princess's mansion to accompany you for a few days and see how, but it's not suitable for me now." Xiao Wanru said with a smile, reached out to pull great elder princess's sleeve, and pulled her to sit down with a sweet smile. She looked a bit delicate like a little girl, which made great elder princess feel more distressed. She reached out to pull Xiao Wanru to sit down beside her and said, "I know it's not suitable now. After the dowry is settled, you can come over and live for a few days. After you get married, it will not be so convenient." As great elder princess spoke, her eyes turned red. The old lady, who had always been strong, remembered that her daughter had also slowly disappeared from her sight after getting married in this way. She couldn't help but feel sad and burst into tears. Xiao Wanru hurriedly comforted her, "Grandma, don't be sad. If you don't want Zhuozhuo to get married, Zhuozhuo won't get married." Her childish words made great elder princess laugh. She reached out to wipe her tears with a handkerchief and couldn't help lecturing her, "Marriage is a big deal. It's not up to you whether you get married or not. Besides, Prince Chen wants you to get married. He promised me 3 years ago." 3 years ago? Xiao Wanru tilted her head curiously. "Yes, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the Empress Dowager had this intention. I was worried, so I went to see Chu Luchen. I'm really worried about his health. If he dies early, you will have to be a widow. The royal family won't allow you to remarry." Great elder princess sighed, took Xiao Wanru's little hand and said lovingly. Even though she was only a great elder princess and had no effect on Chu Luchen, who was favored by the Empress Dowager and the Emperor, she still went to see him. Her purpose was to see if this marriage was suitable. If it was not suitable and Chu Liuchen's health was really poor, she would not let her granddaughter marry Prince Chen even at the cost of her life. What did he say?" Xiao Wanru blushed slightly, but she couldn't help asking in a low voice. Seeing her like this, great elder princess knew that she was willing. She was sad and happy at the same time. She was sad because her daughter also had the same expression at that time. She couldn't help accepting the imperial edict, but ended up like that in the end. She was happy because she could see that they loved each other, so she was naturally happy. Her daughter was not happy, but her granddaughter must be happy. He said that he would definitely protect you and would never let you be a widow. He told me that his illness could be cured, and he asked the doctor in the mansion to come and explain it to me. Great elder princess showed a smile on her face and looked at her granddaughter gently. She also watched Chu Luchen grow up and grow into such an unruly person. He had a gentle appearance, but in fact, his means and methods were very cruel. Behind his smile was a cold and ruthless heart. The whole royal family knew that he had abandoned himself to despair. If he didn't even care about himself, how could he care about others? She didn't expect that one day he would care about a woman so much. He even promised her and asked the doctor to come and explain it to her in order to collect evidence. Although Great Elder Princess didn't understand, she could see that Chu Luchen was really much better. The doctor gave him the medicine, and he drank it in front of her without saying anything. She agreed, but asked Chu Luchen to do what he said. He should at least make his health better in 3 years, and then arrange the marriage between him and Zhuozhuo. Now that she thought about it, he did do it. Prince Chen was getting better. Although he still looked a little worse than ordinary people, she also clearly asked the imperial physicians in the palace, and they all said that if he was well treated, he should be able to live for decades without any major problems, although it was a little weak. Great Elder Princess originally had some concerns, but now seeing Xiao Wanru's expression, she knew that Xiao Wanru was also willing to do it. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. It was better than Qinghua. Chu Luchen was not Xiao Jiang. As long as he was alive, he would definitely protect Zhuozhuo and not let anyone bully her. Great Elder Princess was still convinced of this. In this case, she had no reason to object. She took Xiao Wanru's hand and solemnly told her. She said, in the future, even if Duke Xing's mansion doesn't stand on your side, Grandma will always stand behind you. If anything happens, you must turn to Grandma. Don't keep resisting even if you can't bear it, like your mother. In the end, Great Elder Princess said as her tears fell down. Xiao Wanru also felt sad and threw herself into Great Elder Princess's arms. A trace of hostility flashed across her slightly red eyes. In this life, she would not let Great Elder Princess feel so distressed and desperate that she had nothing to love and become a nun. Chapter 8:11. After Xiao Jing of Duke Xing returned to the mansion, he was hurriedly called back by Old Madam. As soon as he entered the door, Old Madam asked with a livid face, "Do you know how much of Infanta Qinghua's dowry Jiang took away?" "Mother, I don't know this kind of thing." Xiao Jing frowned. The affairs of the inner courtyard were decided by Madam of Duke Xing, Jiang. He had never cared about these things in the past. Jiang is too bold. She took away more than half of it. Does she really think that these are all hers? Old Madam was so angry that she raised her eyebrows. She knew that Jiang took away some of Infanta Qinghua's things. In fact, not only Jiang took them, but she also took them. Jiang would show filial piety to her when she took some. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law understood each other. If she didn't ask, Jiang wouldn't say. What Old Madam didn't expect was that the Madam of Duke Xing's mansion would deceive her and take away more than half of it without telling her. She was careful when talking about Rui and Great Elder Princess. She also hinted that with Rui and Great Elder Princess around, Infanta Qinghua's things could only be taken away slowly, but not too much. Otherwise, it would be hard to guarantee in the future. Rui and Great Elder Princess wanted to check Infanta Qinghua's dowry. Old Madam didn't expect that the Madam of Duke Xing's mansion would be so bold and keep it from her. Old Madam was so angry that the blue veins on her forehead stood out. Now that she took out these things, Rui and Great Elder Princess would never let it go. More than half of it. Xiao Jing also took a deep breath. He didn't expect Jiang to be so bold. Have you checked? Is there anything missing? I've asked the servants in your wife's room, and they said that some of them had been sent out. Some of them were burned when decorating Hua En's courtyard. The rest of them fell into your wife's hands. I also have some in my room. She didn't say that they belonged to Infanta Qinghua when she sent them to me. Madame Dowager frowned and put all the blame on the Madam of Duke Xing. Mother, let's collect everything in our mansion first. If we can't collect everything, we can make up for it with money. After so many years, some things are damaged. When Infanta Qinghua married into our mansion, she also gave some things away. We can't blame it all on us. Xiao Jing said decisively. Old Madam was very worried. It seemed that this was the only way. But after checking just now, she found that some things could not be made up even if she wanted to. Some of the items in Infanta Qinghua's dowry are listed as palace products. Xiao Jing thought for a moment and said, things made in the palace can also be burned down. The courtyard where fifth niece lived was said to have been decorated a long time ago. I thought it was the young lady of Qin's mansion, but later I found out it was not. So I burned the decorations in the courtyard. I had no choice. The layout of that courtyard was extremely gorgeous. Jiang Shi had also taken him to see it. It could be said that it was the most gorgeous courtyard in the entire Fu. Later, it was no wonder that Jiang Shi felt so distressed that she fell ill. Now, it was reasonable to say that some things made in the palace were burned there. On the day of the fire, many people in the capital saw it. Let's do it. Old Madam felt a headache. She reached out to rub between her eyebrows and said, I will paste some things in here and return all the things sent by Jiang Shi in the past. But Jiang Shi has to make up for some things herself. After all, it was her fault at that time. Let's make up for all her dowry. Mother, Ru, and Huan. Xiao Jing was not very satisfied and reminded her. Jiang Shi's things were actually his children's things. Now that Ru has entered the imperial palace, it seems that she will not get better. As for Huan, you can make up for him. Jiang Shi's dowry is not much, and it was left for Ru before. Old Madam said with a sullen face. She had put all her hope on Xiao Yanru, but now she had no hope. She was in a bad mood at the mention of Xiao Yanru. The greater the hope before, the greater the disappointment now. Mother, Ru is not completely hopeless. She is now in that remote place. Maybe she is better. Xiao Jing said implicitly, she has not really been with His Majesty before. Don't you want to give up? Old Madam stared at Xiao Jing in surprise and said. Xiao Jing stood up and looked at Nanny Yu cautiously. The only outsider in the room was Nanny Yu. Nanny Yu sensibly turned around behind Old Madam, walked to the door, closed the door slightly, and guarded the door for them. The sound in the room was very low. Even if she was at the door, she could not hear it clearly, but she still heard Duke saying something to Old Madam inside. Nanny Yu sighed in her heart. She had already figured it out just now. She didn't want to know what Old Madam and Duke were talking about at all. If it was an ordinary secret, Madame Dowager would not avoid her, but it was obviously very important. The important thing was that Duke did not want others to hear it. Even if she was Madame Dowager's henchman, Duke still avoided her. Just now, Duke's cold eyes had explained everything. This reminded Nanny Yu of the last time that Duke showed such an expression and stayed in the room to talk with Old Madam. It had been more than 10 years. After that, the news that heir of Duke had an accident came. Then Infanta Qinghua came back, but she was half crazy. Thinking of this, Nanny Yu's heart trembled inexplicably. She hurriedly took a few steps out to make sure that she could not hear the voice in the room. She was just a servant. Even if she was favored by Old Madam, she was just a servant. Of course, a servant could not hear too much and know too much. In the room, Xiao Jing leaned over to Old Madam and said in a low voice, Mother, since Ru has nothing to do with His Majesty, there may be a chance in the future. The meaning of these words was clearer than what he had said just now. Old Madam was stunned and looked at him in astonishment. Her lips immediately trembled twice. If this kind of words spread out, the whole Duke Xing's mansion would be in trouble. What nonsense are you talking about? Old Madam calmed down and rebuked him. Mother, I'm not talking nonsense. Think about it, both Prince Zhou and Prince Yu are good to Ru. Although something happened before and made them unhappy, this kind of thought will disappear after a period of time. The worse Ru lives in the palace now, the more they will care about her. In the future, no matter who it is, they will take more pity on Ru-er. Xiao Jing boldly thought, which made old madam tremble all over. She said in a trembling voice, "Second brother, you will be beheaded for saying this." "Mother, it doesn't matter if I talk to you in the room. Ru-er was raised by you. You have spent so much effort on her. You can't let her go like this." Xiao Jing said disapprovingly, "Mother, I have already thought about it. As long as Ru-er stays in the palace obediently now, she still has a chance." Xiao Jing did not tell anyone about Prince Cheng, including old madam. As for what would happen next, he secretly sent someone to discuss with Xiao Yenru. He would not let go of this daughter. Except for this daughter, he could not offer any other suitable daughter. But she is the emperor's concubine. Old madam's face was pale with shock and she murmured. Xiao Jing's words moved her. She did raise Xiao Yenru and gave her great hope. She was going to be the granddaughter of the world. Now her granddaughter was ruined, which made her heart ache. "Mother, why are you so anxious? As long as the new emperor takes a fancy to Ru-er, and Ru-er has a pure body, then there is no need to worry about other things. Ru-er has always been smart and knows what to ask at that time. Even if the new emperor can't clear her name, she can still enter the palace with another identity. She can also enter the palace as the daughter of a branch of our family." Xiao Jing thought quickly. After thinking for a while, he came up with an idea. However, this idea was too bold. It not only schemed against the current emperor but also the future emperor. Old madam couldn't stand it. Her cheeks trembled twice and she said, Do you think it's possible?" In fact, old madam had been tempted. If Ru-er really entered the mansion as a daughter of a branch of Duke Xing's mansion, she could also use the surname Xiao. It didn't matter even if she looked a little like Ru-er. After staying in the cold palace for a few years, when she came back, she said that she was a sister of the same branch and dressed differently, so no one would think that she was Ru-er. With the protection of the emperor, there would be nothing wrong. Of course it's possible. "Mother, don't worry. Prince Yu and Prince Zhou are still very polite to me now. They should have also thought of this." Xiao Jing said very confidently. "Okay. I'll do as you say, but be careful now." Old madam was still a little worried and told him. "Mother, don't worry. I know. I'll find a way to send a message to Ru-er and ask her to stay in the palace obediently. Don't go to the emperor. Just be the smallest and lowest treasure forest, which is not eye-catching or hateful. She will only make people feel pity for her. No matter how angry they are, they will let her go when they see that she is so pitiful." Xiao Jing said. The reason why he was so confident was that Xiao Yenru had sent him a message before. She repeatedly said that Prince Yu and Prince Zhou were devoted to her and wanted to marry her. After the fight between Prince Zhou and Prince Yu, they were not as enthusiastic as they used to be when they saw Xiao Jing. After that, Xiao Yenru stayed in the palace, and the two princes even ignored Xiao Jing, which made Xiao Jing have a hard time in the imperial court for a period of time. Fortunately, the two princes had changed their attitude in the past 2 days and restored their enthusiasm to him. It must be because they had figured it out, which made Xiao Jing very happy. Misfortune depended on good fortune, and good fortune lurked in misfortune. After figuring it out, Xiao Jing was not so depressed. However, in front of outsiders, he still looked anxious and waited for another opportunity. The mother and son agreed that Xiao Jing would continue to pay attention to Xiao Yenru in the palace and find a way to send a message to her for later use. In the mansion, old madam would deal with Rui and great elder princess. If she could help, she would help. If she couldn't, she would refuse. She would always find a way to smooth things over. 3 days passed quickly. Early in the morning, Rui and great elder princess entered Duke Xing's mansion and met old madam, who seemed to be much calmer. One of them got her granddaughter's idea, and the other got her son's idea. Both of them felt that they could defeat each other. They calmly took a sip of tea, looked at each other, smiled coldly, and put down their cups. You had a bridge, while I had a good plan. Chapter 8:12. Great Elder Princess, this is part of Infanta Qinghua's dowry that I have sorted out. Please check it. Old Madam said with a smile. Nanny Yu took out a list from her sleeve and respectfully presented it to Great Elder Princess. Great Elder Princess looked at it but did not take it immediately. She twitched the corner of her mouth and said with a sneer, Old Madam, what do you mean? Why do you say it's part of the dowry? Great Elder Princess, you may not know that when Infanta Qinghua married into the mansion, she got along very well with the people in the mansion and gave a lot of things to them. Besides, during the Spring Festival, she also gave some to her relatives and friends. Naturally, these gifts don't need to be sorted out and recorded. We don't need to ask for Infanta Qinghua's favors back. Old Madam said unhurriedly. There are some missing things that have been burned. When the fire broke out, Great Elder Princess also knew that it was Fifth Maid who lived in that courtyard. Originally, that courtyard was arranged for the first branch, and all the things in it were taken from Infanta Qinghua's private warehouse. Now it's a pity that they have been burned out. It's an accident, and no one can do anything about it. Speaking of this, Old Madam sighed, took the list from Nanny Yu's hand, and pushed it to Great Elder Princess on the table. Great Elder Princess, please have a look. If there are other missing things, Duke Xing's mansion is also willing to compensate. Great Elder Princess was so angry that she almost laughed. She had seen shameless people, but she had never seen such a shameless person. It was such a thin list. At first glance, she could tell that a lot of things were missing. When Qinghua married into Duke Xing's mansion, this kind of list had been made into a booklet. How could it be so thin? Old Madam, I remember that when the fire broke out, Zhuozhuo was only temporarily living in that courtyard. How could she have already prepared for it? I heard that the courtyard was prepared by Madam of Duke Xing for the first young master of your mansion. Great Elder Princess sneered and did not take the list. That's just a rumor. Old Madam smiled and relieved her embarrassment. She slowly withdrew her hand and put the list in front of Great Elder Princess. One said so, and so did the other too. Old Madam, do you want me to invite several madams, who were introduced by Madam of Duke Xing that day, to come over and confirm for us whether the courtyard is prepared for the first young master of your mansion or specially prepared for Zhuozhuo, who has just been found for less than a day? Great Elder Princess sneered and said with anger on her face, Zhuozhuo only lived in there for one day, and an accident happened at night. First, someone framed Zhuozhuo, and then the fire suddenly broke out. If it weren't for Zhuozhuo's good luck, she would have lost her reputation and chastity at that time. I want to ask Old Madam why such an accident happened to Duke Xing's mansion when Zhuozhuo just came back to be recognized as her relative for so many years. This time, Great Elder Princess did not intend to give up peacefully. Duke Xing's mansion was too hateful. This time, she was ready to fall out with them. Zhuozhuo's marriage had been settled, and she was supported by Chu Luchen. Hao was still young. Even if they really fell out with each other, it would not affect him much. She slapped the table heavily with her hand, shaking the teacup on it. Old Madam was also very depressed about the fire in the courtyard. She suspected Madam of Duke Xing, but she thought that Madam of Duke Xing would not be so stupid. That was the courtyard she had carefully prepared, and it was impossible for her to burn it for Xiao Wanru's life. But if it was not Madam of Duke Xing, she could not think of anyone else. Even if she racked her brains, she could not imagine that it was Xiao Wanru who had originally made up and acted by herself in order to break the trap set by Madam of Duke Xing. The fire at that time was also an accident. Old Madam coughed in a low voice. An accident? What kind of accident can ruin a person's reputation and kill her? There are so many misses in your mansion, but you have never seen such an accident for so many years. As soon as Zhuozhuo was recognized as her relative, someone couldn't wait to kill her, ruin her reputation, and force her to the road to death. Great Elder Princess snorted coldly and said angrily. Old Madam was so angry by Great Elder Princess's attitude that her face turned pale. If it were not for this incident, Xiao Wanru would not have gone to Yuhui Nunnery to observe mourning for her parents, which helped her good reputation and pushed Duke Xing's mansion to the teeth of the storm. Many people secretly said that Duke Xing's mansion was not good. Thinking of these, old madam felt sullen. She had suffered in silence, and now she could not find out who was behind it. It was impossible for the fire to be started for no reason. It was burned like that and there was kerosene. No matter what, someone had done it on purpose. In the end, this matter helped Xiao Wanru's reputation. Old madam had also suspected Xiao Wanru, but after thinking about it, she directly refused. How could a girl, who was only 11 years old, who had been recognized as her relative, experience such a thing and do such a thing? Moreover, even if she wanted to do it, she did not have the kerosene. When she entered the mansion, she came to accompany Qin Yuru, so it was impossible for her to prepare it in advance. Moreover, it was impossible for her to know about the matter of the Jiang family. No matter what, she was only an 11-year-old girl. It was good enough for her to listen to Rui and great elder princess's advice. How could she plan so carefully? After thinking about it, there was no one else. Could it be the third branch? At that time, the third branch had suffered a great loss. What if they were jealous? But with this idea, old madam did not dare to investigate further. It was a scandal of her family no matter how she investigated it. If it was really the third daughter-in-law, she would expose the previous plot of the second daughter-in-law and Qin Yuru, and the third daughter-in-law was implicated. But this suspicion was also doubtful. The third daughter-in-law had never been in charge of affairs. How could she do it without anyone knowing? Moreover, she was so seriously injured at that time and was unable to arrange it. This matter was a mystery in Duke Xing's mansion. Old madam was afraid to mention it, but now it was brought up by great elder princess. She was speechless and felt very aggrieved. Old madam, I don't care what you think. Duke Xing's mansion owes us for this matter for 3 years. Now you say that there was a fire in the courtyard and Qinghua's things were burned. Old madam, all the good things in the world have fallen into your mansion. It was my son's branch who got into trouble, and all the benefits have fallen into your hands. If you really say so, today we will go to the palace to judge. Rui and great elder princess said sternly. Empress Dowager, please ask the madams who have been to your mansion at that time to come over and tell them what Madam of Duke Xing said at that time. Then ask why those things appeared in that courtyard. Then we will mention why Zhuozhuo has just come to your mansion, but why someone can't tolerate her and set her up again and again. The more Rui and great elder princess said, the angrier she became. Thinking of her daughter who had died early, her granddaughter who had been wandering outside, and her grandson who was almost raised to be useless, the anger rushed up in her heart. She really couldn't bear it. Her granddaughter also said that she didn't need to worry about anything at this time. She could say whatever she wanted and do whatever she wanted. Anyway, she had never been on good terms with Duke Xing's mansion, so there was no need to show mercy at this time. Seeing that Rui and great elder princess mentioned the Empress Dowager again and seemed to fall out with her, old madam felt weak. Duke Xing's mansion was in the wrong in this matter, and more things might be revealed. She didn't dare to really quarrel with great elder princess on this matter. Great elder princess, don't be angry. Even for the sake of Hao, and Fifth Miss, you have to bear with it. No one wants this to happen. Forget it. Duke Xing's mansion is unlucky. Can we compensate for the things inside at the original price? Old madam softened her tone and said. Compensate at the original price? Can you afford it? There are many things made in the palace. Now you want to compensate at the original price. How much is it worth? Rui and great elder princess sneered. Old madam's face turned red. The value of the things made in the palace was certainly not comparable to that of ordinary objects. With the reputation of being made in the palace, it was not comparable to that of ordinary people. What can we do if we don't do this? No one wants to do this. We can't really hurt the faces of the two families for the sake of some property. Our mansion will only compensate them more. The fifth daughter is going to get married to Prince Chen. It's not good to have these property disputes at this time. Old Madam's words were soft but hard. She talked about Xiao Wanru's marriage. Great Elder Princess sneered. These were the words that Zhuozhuo had expected. As expected, she brought them up. Fortunately, she had prepared for it. It is the Empress Dowager's order that Zhuozhuo will marry Prince Chen. If Old Madam thinks that the Empress Dowager will not blame your Duke Xing's mansion, then you can ruin this marriage. At most, you won't raise Zhuozhuo, but I will. Great Elder Princess said. This was almost a slap in the face, and it was a slap in the face of Duke Xing's mansion. Everyone knew that Duke Xing's mansion had a hard time recently. With the Empress Dowager's marriage, Duke Xing's mansion had the hope to recover. At this time, Old Madam did not want anything to go wrong with the marriage more than Rui and Great Elder Princess. Great Elder Princess, what do you think we should do? The things made in the palace have been burned. We can't find the same things again. Old Madam was angry and resentful. She clenched her hands, but she had to soften her attitude first. Rui and Great Elder Princess also knew that it was time to stop. She sat down with a cold snort and told Nanny Gao beside her, "Take out the things we brought." Nanny Gao nodded and also took out a list from her sleeve. Old Madam took it and saw the rules on it. She was angry, but now she was in a weak position and had to agree. According to the compensation terms on the list of Great Elder Princess, Duke Xing's mansion would lose at least 20% or 30%. It was just a daughter who got married, but the whole mansion had lost so much. Old Madam's heart was bleeding, but she had to agree with Great Elder Princess because of her sore point. After Great Elder Princess and Old Madam negotiated, she specially went to the Piaoyin courtyard. Seeing Great Elder Princess coming in with a smile, Xiao Wanru knew that her grandma had completely defeated Old Madam this time. She came out with a smile and said, "Grandma, come in and talk." Great Elder Princess smiled and said to Xiao Wanru in a good mood. Chapter 8:13. After the two of them entered, Great Elder Princess took out two lists from her sleeve, handed one to Xiao Wanru, and said with a sneer, "How dare she take out such a small amount of things?" Then she pushed the other list to Xiao Wanru and said, "This is her compensation to you. There are a few more shops and some other things on it. I will negotiate with you. These shops and your mother's shops will all be recorded in your name." "Grandma, I don't want so many. Give them to Brother Hao." Xiao Wanru shook her head. She also had her own shops, so she didn't need so many shops. "Your brother has some. I only have the two of you. You take these first. In the future, all my shops will be given to Hao. I won't treat him badly. Moreover, Duke Xing's mansion is also here. It's not easy for them to drive you and Hao away." Great Elder Princess said coldly. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and suggested, "Grandma, let my brother live here. After all, he is the heir of Duke Xing's mansion." She had wanted to mention this matter. Since her grandmother mentioned it, she took the opportunity to mention it. Hao was now 10 years old. When she visited him before, she always felt that he was much more sensible than ordinary children of his age. Perhaps because he had no parents, even if he was loved by his grandma, he felt different. Hao is still young. I'm worried about him going back to the mansion at this time. Great Elder Princess shook her head and refused. Hao may not grow up well if he lives in your mansion. You just recognized him, and they can't tolerate you. Grandma, I'm worried that they will bring this up. Xiao Wanru reminded Great Elder Princess. Xiao Yuanhao lived in Great Elder Princess's mansion for 3 years, which was somewhat unjustifiable. Duke Xing's mansion didn't mention it much because so many things had happened because of her. Now they had compensated her with property, so this matter would inevitably be brought up. In terms of reason, it was enough for Hao to live in her maternal grandmother's house for 3 years. Her maternal grandmother had no reason to keep Hao Even if it was brought to the Empress Dowager, her maternal grandmother would lose. What should we do? Great Elder Princess also thought of this and couldn't help frowning. She was really worried and reluctant to let her grandson go. In the past 3 years, her little grandson brought her a lot of happiness and she gradually calmed down the pain of losing her daughter. Now she was unwilling to send her grandson back to Duke Xing's mansion. Grandma, do you want to raise him for a few more years? Xiao Wanru asked softly. 3 years, at least 3 years. After 3 years, Hao will only be 13 years old. Only then will he have the ability to distinguish right from wrong. He won't be harmed by them again. Rui and Great Elder Princess thought for a while, hesitated at first, and then said affirmatively, I can't give you any less. Everyone in their mansion is up to no good. Hao is still so young now. I really don't feel at ease raising him here. In fact, in the past 3 years, Chu Luqian had been helping to raise Xiao Yuanhao. Xiao Yuanhao was not as gentle as he looked, but Great Elder Princess was still worried. Great Elder Princess hesitated for a moment and said decisively, Hao can give up the title, but he can't lose his life. However, Duke Xing's mansion can't take advantage of the title. It originally belonged to your father. Why can't it be passed on to your brother? Your second uncle just stole your father's title of Duke Xing. Great Elder Princess hesitated for a moment and said decisively, Hao can give up the title, but he can't lose his life. However, the title must not be given to Duke Xing's mansion. It originally belonged to your father. Why can't it be passed on to your younger brother? Your second uncle just stole your father's title of Duke Xing. Xiao Wanru was not surprised by Great Elder Princess's idea. She also considered Hao's safety first and then the title. No matter how good the title was, it was not as important as Hao's life. In Duke Xing's mansion, she could be sure that someone would hurt Hao. Xiao Wanru didn't have a good impression of Duke Xing's mansion because they covered their vicious nature with their superficial hypocrisy. Grandma, if you want to raise Hao, there is a way. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. What way? Great Elder Princess asked anxiously. Unconsciously, she had completely trusted her granddaughter. Grandma, listen to me. Xiao Wanru leaned over and whispered a few words in Great Elder Princess's ear. Great Elder Princess nodded and answered repeatedly as she listened. After Xiao Wanru finished speaking, Great Elder Princess looked at Xiao Wanru kindly, but her eyes were slightly red. Compared with her, her granddaughter was a child who had no one doted on her, so she was so considerate and sensible. For a moment, she blamed herself and felt sad. Speaking of it, it was all Duke Xing's mansion's fault. Why did her daughter leave Duke Xing's mansion like this? If she really couldn't live on, she wouldn't have sent a letter to her. Not only did she lose her life for no reason, but she also left a pair of children without anyone to take care of them. Zhuozhua, after you get married, you will be the princess of Prince Chen's mansion. Although Prince Chen is a little unruly and cold-hearted, I have never seen him care about a girl. Since he treats you like this now, I'm afraid that he really cares about you. With Prince Chen protecting you, I can rest assured. Great Elder Princess was about to cry as she spoke. Her granddaughter was going to get married before enjoying the happiness of a family. Even though Great Elder Princess knew Chu Liuqian's intention, she still couldn't help crying. Grandma, I'm fine. In the future, I will still come to see you. Maybe it will be more convenient than here. Xiao Wanru reached out and shook Great Elder Princess's hand and said coquettishly. Okay, okay. Great Elder Princess wiped her tears with a handkerchief. She felt happy and sad at the same time and nodded repeatedly. Grandma, just ask someone to check the accounts as I said. After so many years, they won't leave behind mother's things. Xiao Wanru comforted Rui and Great Elder Princess and said. She also felt very sad and hurriedly lowered her head. In the last life, her grandma must have lived a desperate life. She was hit again and was schemed against. She couldn't even live a normal life. In this life, with Hao and Xiao Wanru, her grandma cheered up again. After talking with Xiao Wanru for a while, Rui and Great Elder Princess took back the list and left with Nanny Gao. These lists were just lists now. It was not suitable to give them to Zhuozhuo before seeing the official things. Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion had always been a cunning person and would not give up so easily. In fact, Xiao Wanru guessed it. As expected, not long after Great Elder Princess left, Old Madam asked someone to summon her. After tidying up a little, Xiao Wanru followed the servant girl to Old Madam's courtyard. On the way, she unexpectedly met Xiao Huan. After meeting Xiao Wanru, Xiao Huan stepped forward politely and said with a smile, "Fifth sister." Then he looked at the old maid who led the way in front and asked, "Fifth sister, are you going to see Grandma?" "What a coincidence, let's go together." "Yes." Xiao Wanru lowered her head and answered. Xiao Wanru had always been unable to see through the first young master of Duke Xing's mansion. In the last life, there was no dispute between them, as if he did not know that there was a person like her. Neither her second uncle nor this elder brother of Duke Xing's mansion cared about the affairs of the inner courtyard. But did he really not know? Xiao Wanru was sure that her second uncle, the current Duke Xing, definitely knew about it. Then what about Xiao Huan, who also looked innocent and kind? In this life, there was not much interaction between them. Xiao Huan seemed to be a kind elder brother. Although she did not see him often, he was very polite every time they met. No matter what disputes there were between her and the second branch, this elder brother seemed to be independent. But what about in the dark? The relationship between Xiao Huan and Qi Rongji was a little unusual. However, Xiao Wanru could not tell whether this unusual relationship was really because of Qi Rongji or Qi Tianyu. Moreover, did they really not have any grudges? The reason why Madame of Duke Xing's mansion still stayed in the nunnery was inextricably linked to her. She did not believe that Xiao Huan really knew nothing about it. "I heard that Great Elder Princess is here. Did you see her, fifth sister?" Xiao Huan asked while walking, as if he did not notice Xiao Wanru's indifference. "Yes, my grandma came to see me just now," Xiao Wanru said. "Did she mention Brother Hao?" "He has lived in Great Elder Princess's mansion for so long and seldom comes back. My grandma talked about him a few days ago and said that she missed him very much." Xiao Huan sighed and reached out to pinch between his eyebrows. "Great Elder Princess and my grandma are so old, but they are still in such a rush to see each other. It makes things difficult for us." He said it in an extremely calm tone without any blame. It sounded like he was smiling, which made people unable to figure out what he meant at the moment. "Hao is still young. Grandma is reluctant to let him go," Xiao Wanru said vaguely. "Hao is indeed young. He used to go out with me. Now that I think about it, it has been 3 years and he should have grown up a lot. Grandma always feels that she has neglected Brother Hao," Xiao Huan said with a gentle smile. After that, he didn't ask more about Xiao Yuanhao's affairs. Instead, he paid more attention to Xiao Wanru's affairs. He asked her how she was doing in detail and told her that she could tell her third aunt, grandma, and the things that happened outside to him. Before understanding Xiao Huan's meaning, Xiao Wanru nodded one by one and occasionally answered Xiao Huan's questions in a distant tone. The two of them seemed to be talking and laughing when they arrived at the Chuntang courtyard. Someone had already reported to Old Madam. Although Old Madam was full of resentment towards Xiao Wanru, she could not show it on her face, so she asked someone to invite them in. After they entered the courtyard, they bowed to Old Madam together. Old Madam nodded and asked them to sit down. "Why did Huan come in?" After they sat down, Old Madam asked with a smile. "My father asked me to tell Grandma about the object I bought last time. That object is gone, and the shopkeeper said that there was a similar one. He didn't know whether Grandma would like it or not, so he specially asked me to come here to ask Grandma for her opinion." Xiao Huan put down the teacup in his hand and answered with a smile. "That object is gone." Old Madam thought for a moment and frowned with a bad look. She subconsciously glanced at Xiao Wanru and then turned her eyes back. He subconsciously turned his eyes over, but he consciously turned his eyes away. Chapter 8:14. Yes, but there is a similar one, which looks good. That's what my father wants. What do you think, Grandma? Xiao Hua and said. Old Madam thought for a while and didn't answer directly this time. After a while, she said, then we should find out which mansion bought it first. She meant that she still wanted the original one. Okay, I'll tell my father now. Xiao Hua and stood up and said with a smile. Go ahead. Old Madam said. Xiao Hua and bowed to Old Madam, nodded to Xiao Wanru, and then turned to leave. Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on him. This elder brother seemed to be really decent and kind. If it weren't for Xiao Yanru's lesson, she might have really believed him. Her watery eyes involuntarily became deep and dark. Your elder brother is busy now. Some of your mother's things were sent out by her and lost outside. I'll try my best to find them for you. If I can't find them, there's nothing I can do. Old Madam sighed and looked gloomy. Xiao Wanru lowered her head and said softly, Thank you, Grandma. But she didn't say anything about not collecting them. It should be her grandma who forced Old Madam to find them. She couldn't say anything at this time, nor could she drag her grandma down. Seeing that Xiao Wanru accepted the fact so calmly, Old Madam felt so angry that she really wanted to spit it out. Xiao Wanru just agreed as if it was what she should do. Old Madam was angry and annoyed, but she had to suppress the anger in her heart. It's best to get them back, but I'm afraid that we can't get them back in a short time. Your second aunt lost some of them before, and I'm afraid that we can't get them back. I want to send someone to ask your second aunt about it, but... Old Madam paused and seemed to be hesitant. Xiao Wanru thought quickly and stole a glance at Old Madam's expression. She seemed to be in a dilemma with her eyebrows tightly frowned, as if she didn't know how to deal with it. With such an obvious expression and Old Madam's words just now, Xiao Wanru had already understood that Old Madam was going to target her. Without saying anything, she lowered her head and pinched the handkerchief in her hand, as if she didn't understand what Old Madam meant, and waited quietly for Old Madam to finish her words. There was an awkward silence in the room for a while, and Old Madam felt sullen again. As expected, she was not raised by herself, so she would not be considerate. If she was her eldest granddaughter, she would definitely take the initiative at this time. How could she let herself be in an awkward silence? She coughed again, but no one answered. She had to say it anyway. I'm old and don't have the energy to ask your second aunt. Your third aunt isn't in good health either. Why don't you pick a sister to go with you and ask your second aunt directly? Only your second aunt knows where some things are. Old Madam said. Pick another sister. They were both old madams, and the kindness in Old Madam Chin's eyes to her was real, unlike Old Madam's false performance. Thank you, Grandma. Will second sister and I go tomorrow? Xiao Wanru asked softly. In fact, the sooner, the better. But you have just returned to the mansion, so you have to take a rest first. Old Madam nodded and said, It's up to you. If you think it's time to go, inform me in advance. I will ask someone to prepare a carriage and some people for you. There are other people. Xiao Wanru looked up in surprise and asked. Of course I have to prepare a few people for you. They are all my people. Your second aunt won't talk nonsense when she sees them. Old Madam said. In other words, Old Madam would send someone to follow her. What was she doing? Did she really want her to go up the mountain to ask Madame Jiang for the objects in her mother's dowry? If it was really for this reason, wouldn't it be better for Old Madam to send Nanny Yu up the mountain than for her to mobilize so many people? If she went up the mountain to ask Madame Jiang for the objects in such a big way, what would Madame Jiang think of her? Would she say that she was going to marry Prince Chen and be Princess Chen soon, so she took advantage of her power to bully others, be arrogant and domineering, and even did not let go of her aunt who was punished on the mountain? Most people in the world only saw the surface, and few people could tell whether it was true or not. Old Madam made a good move. She transferred the resentment outside to herself and forced her aunt, who went up the mountain to cultivate in seclusion, to ask for the dowry. If something else happened, it would be really shameful. But her face was also the face of Duke Xing's mansion now. How would old Madam ensure her face and make her grandma give in? This was the key. But where was the key to this? Thinking about the key point of this matter carefully, Xiao Wanru walked forward in deep thought. Unexpectedly, she met Xiao Jia, halfway, and the two of them walked face to face. Fifth sister. Xiao Jia, looked bad. Seeing Xiao Wanru, she was stunned for a moment and said in a low voice. Second sister. Xiao Wanru nodded casually and continued to walk forward. They were about to pass each other when Xiao Jia, suddenly said, Fifth sister, please wait. Xiao Wanru turned her head and looked at Xiao Jia, in surprise. Seeing that Xiao Jia, looked a little pleading, her long eyelashes fluttered twice, she stood still, raised her eyebrows in confusion and said, Second sister. Fifth sister, can I have a word with you? Xiao Jia said in a low voice. Second sister, if you have anything to say, you can say it here. Xiao Wanru looked around and found no one else. Fifth sister, I just want to say something. Don't say it here. Let's go behind the rockery, okay? Xiao Jia, also looked up, pointed at a rockery on the side and said. The rockery was on the side of the road. One side was against an empty courtyard, and the other side was facing the road. No one would see them behind the rockery. However, she had nothing to say to Xiao Jia, so she didn't think that the two of them were so close. Second sister, if you have something to say, you can say it here. There is nothing that can't be said to others. We don't have to do this. We are in Duke Xing's mansion, and we are sisters. No one will say anything. Xiao Wanru shook her head and refused with a smile. Fifth sister, I really have something to tell you. Seeing that she couldn't persuade Xiao Wanru, Xiao Jia, suddenly held her handkerchief and shed tears. This scene surprised Xiao Wanru. She really didn't know when her relationship with Xiao Jia had become so close that they had to hide and whisper to each other. She frowned, pointed at the rockery, and said, Second sister, since you have to go there to talk, let's come here together. After saying that, she turned around and walked to the rockery. Xiao Jia, followed her. After the two of them turned to a corner in the rockery, Xiao Wanru looked up at an attic diagonally opposite the corner. The place was a little far from here, but the angle was right. If someone saw it, it would be a coincidence. The curtains of the attic were half rolled up, and the veil fell slightly. No one could be seen. Second sister, if you have something to say, you have to come here to say it. Xiao Wanru turned to look at Xiao Jia, and asked slowly, quietly waiting for Xiao Jia, to give her an explanation. Her watery eyes fell on Xiao Jia, coldly, and her deep eyes seemed to be able to see through all of Xiao Jia's thoughts. Xiao Jia, panicked and hurriedly wiped her tears with a handkerchief. Then, under Xiao Wanru's shocked gaze, she knelt down with a flop and cried, Fifth sister, save me. Chapter 8:15. Second sister, what's the matter? Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jia, with ripples in her eyes. Yu Jia came over to pull Xiao Jia, up and said anxiously, Second miss, what's wrong with you? Did you hurt yourself? Please stand up first. If you have something to say, talk to my master. She was so strong that Xiao Jia had to stand up. Seeing that Xiao Jia, was in a bad situation, the maid beside Xiao Jia, also helped Xiao Jia. Xiao Jia, who had stood up, could not kneel down again. At this time, she covered her face with a handkerchief and just cried. Xiao Wanru rolled her eyes with a trace of deepness in her eyes. Second sister, what do you mean? Did you call me here on purpose just to let me see you cry? She was a little angry at this time. Xiao Jia helped Xiao Yanru to deal with her and had never been kind to her in the past. At this time, she pretended to be bullied and even knelt down to her just now. If others saw it, they would think that she had done something to her. Fifth sister, please help me. Please help me. I can't find anyone else except you. Xiao Jia cried, wiping her tears with a handkerchief and looking very sad. Second sister, if you can't give me a reason, I'll leave first. Let's talk about it after you think it through. Xiao Wanru's face darkened and she was about to walk out. Fifth sister, my father wants to marry me to third sister, Xiao Jia cried. Xiao Wanru stopped for a moment. She had just returned to Duke Xing's mansion, so she really didn't understand what Xiao Jia meant for a moment. Seeing Xiao Wanru stop, Xiao Jia said again, Fifth sister, it's my marriage. Even if third sister's face is ruined, it's still my marriage. Why should it be given to third sister? Third sister wants this marriage of yours. The marriage with Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Xiao Wanru asked in surprise and almost couldn't believe her ears. Did second uncle tell you about it? No, they didn't tell me. I overheard it secretly. I overheard it from my father and third uncle. They said that third younger sister's face was ruined, so it's impossible for her to have a good marriage in the future. They said that at least I'm fine and there will be a good marriage waiting for me in the future. But how can there be a good marriage for me? I'm already 17, and I'm a concubine's daughter, Xiao Jia cried. Xiao Wanru's eyes darkened, and she blinked her watery eyes silently. Her long eyelashes hid the doubt in her eyes. Would second uncle really give his daughter's marriage to third uncle? Speaking of this third uncle, Xiao Wanru had only met him once or twice. This third uncle was very low-key and not very promising. He held a nominal position in the yamen and had a lot of contacts with some scoundrels. Old Madam was not very fond of him, but he was her biological son, so she had to take care of him. It was also because he didn't put much effort into it that the position of the third branch in the Fu was only a vassal. He didn't expect that he would actually go to second uncle and talk about this marriage. Did third uncle ask for it or did second uncle take the initiative to give it? Xiao Wanru was suspicious in her heart, but she asked calmly. It was third uncle who came to ask for it. I happened to be folding flowers behind my father's study. I heard third uncle come to ask for it. He said that third younger sister's face was ruined because she entered the palace. He said that for the sake of Duke Xing's mansion, he asked my father to give this marriage to third younger sister. Xiao Jia wiped her tears hard. Is third sister's face really ruined? Xiao Wanru frowned slightly and asked. Yes, I heard that it's not good. Although she has been recuperating now, I'm afraid that there will be scars on her face. Several imperial physicians from the palace have also come, and each of them said that the poison is very. It will damage her face in the future. Xiao Jia said angrily and hatefully. Now she wished that Xiao Caihuan could die in the palace. A dead man will not snatch his own marriage. Did second uncle and third uncle talk about something else? Xiao Wanru said. She had no sympathy for Xiao Caihuan at all. If she hadn't been more alert at that time, she would have been poisoned. Although Xiao Caihuan was not the one who directly poisoned Xiao Caihuan, she obviously knew something, but she pretended not to know anything and secretly set a trap for her. She deserved the current situation, so she couldn't blame others. The poison was so poisonous that Xiao Caihuan had no possibility of recovery and even wanted to take away Xiao Jia's marriage. It could be seen that her face was ruined a lot. Since she returned to the mansion, she had been busy here and hadn't seen Xiao Caihuan, so she didn't know how her face was. I didn't hear anything else clearly. It seemed that they said something else. I heard that my father didn't agree at first, but then they talked very softly, so I didn't dare to get too close. I only heard something about more than 10 years ago. Big brother. Infanta, something. When I wanted to get closer, I saw my father's 2 guards turn around and run away in a hurry. Xiao Jia said. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. Now she was particularly concerned about what had happened more than 10 years ago. She thought about it and wondered if it was because not only second uncle but also third uncle had intervened in her father's affairs. Or second uncle had directly intervened, and third uncle was an insider. Just like what had happened in the imperial palace that day, Xiao Yanru should have directly intervened, and Xiao Caihuan was an insider. Moreover, Xiao Caihuan had taken advantage of the situation at the right time. A burst of anger burst out in her heart, and she clenched the handkerchief in her hand tightly. She almost couldn't help but want to ask these people how could they be so evil. Therefore, the family affection was the yardstick they calculated. This time, one of them threatened the other with what he knew in exchange for his daughter's marriage. He was a affectionate and righteous father, but he didn't have any brotherly affection at all. She bit the corner of her lip hard, and her eyes were almost burning with flames. She wished she could burn the entire Duke Xing's mansion. It was really the dirtiest place she had ever seen. Miss. Seeing Xiao Wanru's fierce and bloodthirsty eyes, Yu Jie was startled and hurriedly called out. Xiao Jie was also startled. She took a step back and looked at Xiao Wanru in a daze. At this time, Xiao Wanru looked full of killing intent, as if she was going to devour others. Fifth sister. Xiao Jie was so scared that she couldn't cry. Xiao Wanru took a deep breath and suppressed the blood in her heart. The redness in her eyes faded away, and she became sober again. Second sister, do you know that your marriage is not a good one? Chu Qing had been silent for a long time. He probably didn't want Xiao Jie to marry into the mansion, and it was impossible for him to make Xiao Jie the legal wife. I know, but it's my marriage. Xiao Jie cried. She had thought a lot about it these days, and she didn't dare to think about the position of legal wife. But at least she could be a concubine. With the identity of Duke Xing's mansion, Commandery Prince Qing would accept her. Especially when she thought that this marriage was going to be over soon, she increasingly felt that it was a good marriage. If she lost this marriage now, Madame of Duke Xing was now locked up in the Yuhui nunnery, and old Madame didn't care about her, who would make the decision for her to get a good marriage. No matter how bad Commandery Prince Qing was, he was still a descendant of the royal family with the royal blood flowing in his body. If she married him well, she might have a chance. But now this opportunity had been taken away by Xiao Caihuan. How could she not hate her? Second sister, are you willing to be a concubine? Xiao Wanru looked at her and knew that she understood what she meant. So she didn't hide it anymore and asked directly. I am willing to be Commandery Prince Qing's concubine. Xiao Jie cried aggrievedly again. Has second uncle told second sister about it? Xiao Wanru asked again. It didn't seem that she had told second sister about it. No, I just heard about it not long ago. Xiao Jie shook her head hard. When did you hear it? Yesterday. I heard it yesterday. Fifth sister, go and tell father that it's good for you if I marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. If you say so, father will definitely listen to you. Xiao Jie said in a daze, and her words were even a little incoherent. She didn't want to tell old madam, so she naturally wouldn't tell third madam. She and her concubine had been thinking about it all night, and only Xiao Wanru was suitable. Now Xiao Wanru's marriage would make the whole Duke Xing's mansion proud. Her words now must be worth 10 words from others. Before the matter was officially agreed, Xiao Jie had to make her father change his mind. This was also the reason why she deliberately came to stop Xiao Wanru on the road today. Fifth sister, save me. I will definitely repay you by doing anything in the future. Xiao Jie was willing to let Xiao Wanru say anything at this time. She only hoped that Xiao Wanru could stop this matter. I heard that second sister is going to accompany me to see second aunt. Xiao Wanru changed the topic, slightly raised the corners of her mouth, and said unhurriedly. There is such a thing. It's old madam's idea. She asked me to accompany you to Yuhui Nunnery to find madam and ask for the dowry left by Infanta Qinghua. Xiao Jia nodded. Thinking of this, she couldn't help feeling jealous. As a miss who had been raised in Duke Xing's mansion for more than 10 years, she couldn't compare with a miss who lived outside. She was the miss who had been raised with the etiquette of Duke Xing's mansion, and she was also the most courteous. Why didn't such a good thing happen to her? If there was an order from the Empress Dowager, even if she was a daughter of a concubine, it didn't matter. Although Prince Chen was a little sick, he was such an immortal-like figure. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was favored by God. How good it would be if he liked her. Old madam's idea. When did it happen? Xiao Wanru asked again. It happened just now. Before you went there, I heard that old madam asked someone to call you over, so I waited here. I saw someone leading you and my brother beside you, so I didn't come out to stop you. I stayed here and waited for you to come back. Xiao Jia explained. She still needed Xiao Wanru's help now, so she naturally told the truth. In addition to this, did old madam tell you anything else? Xiao Wanru thought for a while and said. If that was the case, it seemed that she shouldn't specially summon Xiao Jia. In the past, when Xiao Jia was needed, neither Madam of Duke Xing, old madam, nor Xiao Yenru specially summoned Xiao Jia to tell her the reason. Then why did old madam make such a grand ceremony today? Xiao Jia blinked her eyes at the question and couldn't think of anything for a moment. After a long while, she said hesitantly, does it count as asking someone to escort us there? Chapter 8:16. Who will escort us there? Xiao Wanru asked sensitively. She didn't make it clear. She just said that we will go up the mountain to the Yuhui Nunnery, which is a long way. Old madam is worried and will find someone to escort us or take us there by the way. Xiao Jia stammered. At that time, she didn't care about these things at all and only remembered to agree. This matter didn't have much to do with her. She was now full of her own marriage, so how could she pay attention to other things? Fifth sister, can you help me? Xiao Jia changed the topic to the previous thing. You want to enter Commandery Prince Qing's mansion? Have you asked for second uncle's opinion? Or does he have a better place for you? Xiao Wanru blinked her eyes and asked. Xiao Jia fell silent for a while and then said with uncertainty, but, it's impossible. She suddenly thought of something and her eyes widened. 2 days ago, her father did come to find her and gave her a few gifts. He also cared about her health. This was something that had never happened before. She was very excited at that time and thought that Commandery Prince Qing's marriage had been settled. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wanru didn't mention Commandery Prince Qing in the end, but talked about something else. She didn't understand anything at that time. Now that Xiao Wanru mentioned it, she immediately remembered some scattered words at that time. What did second uncle say? Xiao Wanru's eyes flickered and she asked softly. Cheng. Prince Cheng. Xiao Jia opened her mouth wide in panic. She remembered that her father mentioned Prince Cheng the most that day. He also said a few more things about Prince Cheng and repeatedly reminded her that Prince Cheng was a good person. Moreover, his words seemed to be meaningful. Fifth sister, I have something to do, so I won't disturb you. The more Xiao Jia thought about it, the more panicked she became. She said these words in a daze and turned to leave. Miss, what's wrong with second miss? Why did she run away by herself after making such a big fuss? Yujia asked in confusion. Xiao Wanru shook her head and walked out. Was Prince Cheng what she thought it meant? Did Prince Cheng, who hated marriage the most and made such a big fuss before, intend to marry Xiao Jia now? What kind of agreement did he have with second uncle that made second uncle have such a thought? With second uncle's temperament, if he had not told the truth in front of Prince Cheng, it was impossible for him to reveal anything to Xiao Jia. Third uncle's idea should coincide with second uncle's, so there was the saying that sisters could get married. But she didn't know whether Chu Qing would be satisfied. It was obvious that Chu Qing was a man with a distant mind. Marrying the young lady of the third branch, and a disfigured one at that, was not a good thing for him. The twists and turns in this matter might not be so easy to resolve. How would the residents operate in order to satisfy him? The trip to the Yuhui nunnery was completed so soon. Old Madam specially sent someone to tell her that they should go to the Yuhui nunnery with the family members of Lord Zhao, the minister of the Ministry of Works. It happened that they were going to the Yuhui nunnery to worship Buddha, so Old Madam asked Xiao Wanru and Xiao Jia to go with them. Early in the morning, Xiao Wanru and her sister had dressed up and said goodbye to Old Madam. They sat in the carriage of Duke Xing's mansion and waited at the city gate, waiting for the carriage of Zhao's mansion to come over, and then they would leave the city together. They got up early, but it was already very lively at the city gate at this time. After the city gate opened, people kept coming in from outside the city. Xiao Wanru thought it was too noisy, so she deliberately hid in a corner, slightly away from the position facing the city gate. She also sent her family to guard at the city gate. When they saw the carriage of the Zhao mansion, they immediately came to report. Xiao Wanru and Xiao Jia sat in the big carriage in the front, and the two servant girls and the sundries for offering incense were placed in the small carriage in the back. On the surface, they were also going to offer incense. Since they had gone to the Yuhui nunnery, they had to pay their respects to the Bodhisattva. Xiao Jia was full of worries. She sat there with her head lowered, thinking about what was on her mind. Sometimes she was happy, and sometimes she was worried, which made Xiao Wanru frown secretly. It seemed that Xiao Jing really had other arrangements. Xiao Jia also thought of something, so she didn't lose control in a panic like that day. In terms of marriage, Prince Cheng was indeed more powerful. After Chu Qing was recognized, he basically did not do anything. Moreover, he was not favored by the Empress Dowager because he was the son of the former emperor as others imagined. The Empress Dowager seemed to give all her favor to Chu Luchen. Even though Chu Qing was also the son of the former emperor, he had no status in front of the Empress Dowager. Moreover, he was not raised by the Empress Dowager since he was a child and had no affection for him. She treated him like an ordinary clan relative. Prince Cheng was different. The Empress Dowager was really concerned about Prince Cheng. This was what she meant when she wanted to marry for him. Although he was unwilling to do so, in the current situation, he should get married in the end since he had not become a monk after all. If there was a girl who caught his eye, it would be a very happy thing. Not only did she win Prince Cheng's heart, but she also solved a big problem for the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. From this point of view, the Empress Dowager and the Emperor must also like her. Xiao Jia's current behavior was quite thought-provoking. It seemed that it was true. Xiao Yanru wandered between Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou, while Xiao Jing was on Prince Cheng's side. Prince Cheng, who had always been quiet and inactive, actually wanted to marry Xiao Jia. It could be seen that he was secretly ambitious. Although it was just a marriage between the girls in the backyard, the twists and turns in it made Xiao Wanru feel quite shocked. She leaned sideways against the window, stopped paying attention to Xiao Jia, and raised her watery eyes slightly to look out of the window. The thick curtain outside the window was raised high, leaving only a thin gauze curtain. People sitting inside could see the scenery outside the window through the gauze curtain. Although it was a remote corner, Xiao Wanru's window was also facing a relatively quiet street. Thinking carefully about the possibility of Xiao Jia marrying Prince Cheng's mansion and Xiao Caihuan marrying Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she suddenly glanced at a person out of the corner of her eye. She suddenly widened her eyes and stiffened her body at once. "Fifth sister, what's wrong with you?" Xiao Jia raised her head and asked in surprise. She had recovered at this time and was no longer in a panic and helpless state. She also raised her chin slightly and looked noble again. She deserved to be Xiao Yanru's sister because she really looked a bit like Xiao Yanru. I'm fine. Second sister, have you thought it through? Xiao Wanru glanced at her indifferently, reached out to gently pull the hanging gauze curtain, and asked in an extremely bored tone. Xiao Jia didn't know how to answer this question. She hadn't figured out whether it was true or not. The happiness came so suddenly that she couldn't come to her senses until now. She had to think about those words sentence by sentence. Of course, she wouldn't tell Xiao Wanru anything in her heart at this moment. She even regretted complaining to Xiao Wanru in a panic that day. She was too flustered before and just wanted to show her weakness to Xiao Wanru. Now thinking about it, it was really shameful. Even if Xiao Wanru became Princess Chen in the future, she wouldn't be inferior to Xiao Wanru. If she entered Prince Cheng's mansion, she would have to surpass Xiao Wanru and become Xiao Wanru's elder. So what if she became Princess Chen? Thinking of this, she felt regretful and ashamed. It was all her concubine's idea that made her lose face in front of Xiao Wanru. She snorted indifferently and said, "Why can't I think it through? As a daughter, of course, I have to listen to my father and do whatever he says." After saying this, she closed her eyes, leaned against the wall of the carriage and continued to think about something. She didn't intend to pay attention to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and didn't care about Xiao Jia despicable behavior. She had long known what kind of person Xiao Jia was. When she needed someone, she could trample on her dignity and beg for anything. Once she got the upper hand, she would be arrogant and disdainful of her relatives. In the past, she had been Xiao Yanru's lackey. Once she fell into a disadvantageous position, she could do anything. Speaking of which, she was a typical despicable person. Her watery eyes flashed out of the carriage window again, but she couldn't see the figure before. The face was somewhat similar to that person in her memory, or it should be that person. But now he had entered the courtyard over there and the door of the courtyard was closed. From the position of the carriage, she couldn't see the scene of the person entering the courtyard. She could only vaguely see the corner of the navy blue robe flashing by just now. She closed her eyes and restrained the coldness and sarcasm at the bottom of her eyes. That person finally came. It was indeed time for him to come. The courtyard at the city gate looked big. Didn't that person used to live in an inn? Why did he come here? The bloody truth of his previous life was right in front of his eyes, but it was not his own. It was another woman's. That woman jumped down from a tall building and became her own chastity. She received the honor of mourning after death. The imperial court even erected a chastity memorial tablet for her. This scholar who had just graduated high school was demoted back to his original hometown, and he was made to guard this wife's memorial tablet for the rest of his life. Xiao Wanru didn't know what happened after that. In the last life, she only saw this person once from a distance. It was Madame D who brought her here and pointed at her from a distance. He looked gentle and had a good temperament. Xiao Wanru nodded at that time. She didn't expect such a thing to happen. After that, she had never seen the man named Yan Shi again. She didn't know why she recognized him at once when she saw him again in this life. It was really difficult to think that such a person was not good. Although he was not very good-looking, the smile on his face looked very sincere without any falsehood. Would such a man really abandon his wife and son? The distant nephew of Madame of Duke Xing and the Jiang family? Did he have something to do with the Jiang family? Second miss, fifth miss, the carriage of Minister Zhao's family has arrived. Outside the carriage door, a servant suddenly reported. Follow them. Xiao Wanru ordered lightly. Chapter 8:17. The carriage moved slowly. Xiao Wanru opened her eyes again and suddenly saw the door of the courtyard opened. The man in navy blue appeared at the door and was sent out by a woman. After the carriage passed by, Xiao Wanru's eyes suddenly widened and she looked at the woman in the courtyard in disbelief. That woman, wasn't she the woman who jumped off the tall building? On that day, the woman was going to jump off the building and stated the man's crime on the high pavilion. Xiao Wanru happened to come out that day and also saw the woman on the tall building. She even saw the woman jump off the building resolutely. At that time, she felt sorry for herself and the resolute woman. But why was this woman here at this time? Didn't she come to the capital city after passing the imperial examination? The imperial examination in spring hadn't started yet. Why was she here? Moreover, she didn't dress like a woman from an ordinary family. She looked like a servant girl. Xiao Wanru stared at the carriage passing by in panic. In the end, she couldn't see it. She clenched the veil tightly and almost couldn't help stopping the carriage. She wanted to see clearly what she had seen before. What did it mean? Why was it different from what she had imagined? Didn't Child Yen abandon his wife and son? What was everything in front of her? Did she see it wrong? His heart trembled inexplicably. His hands and feet were ice cold. He could no longer see the two people in front of him. He leaned back and took a deep breath. His heart and lungs seemed to be burning fiercely, and there was an inexplicable melancholy raging inside. Fifth sister, what's wrong with you? Her action had already alarmed Xiao Jia. She looked at Xiao Wanru and asked unhappily. She was in a bad mood when she was woken up by Xiao Wanru just now. Nothing. I just feel a little uncomfortable. Xiao Wanru covered her chest and frowned. If you feel uncomfortable, you should have said it earlier. Now that we have gone out, what can you do even if you say you feel uncomfortable? Xiao Jia said coldly. She closed her eyes again and thought about what would happen if she married Prince Cheng in the future. If she was lucky, she might become the empress, which Xiao Yenru had been pursuing. She didn't expect that this opportunity would fall on her. At that time, the entire Duke Xing's mansion would cling to her side. No one would dare to look down on her. Neither Xiao Yenru nor Xiao Wanru could compare with her. So what if she was the daughter of the first wife? As a daughter of a concubine, she could suppress all of them in the future. Xiao Wanru slowly calmed down, rolled her watery eyes slightly, and fell on Xiao Jia. Seeing her smile complacently, she knew that Xiao Jia was dreaming, so she didn't break her dream. She still leaned against the window and thought about the scene just now. What she saw just now was a great shock to her. It was a shock to some of the things she knew in her previous life. This kind of understanding was completely different from her previous life. What else could she not understand? This was not only her own problem, but that Child Yen was also a victim. A distant nephew of the Jiang family? She heard this from Madame D, but she didn't know whether it was true or not. Since the so-called abandonment of his wife and son might be false, the identity of a so-called distant nephew might also be false. She didn't know how this person named Yen she had offended Duke Xing's mansion or Duke Yong's mansion so that they would also deal with him when they dealt with her. Was there anything in it that she didn't know? Was it because of political reasons or something else? She heard that he was just an ordinary scholar. Why did they deal with him like this? Did they set up this trap for her or for him? Xiao Wanru only remembered that in the end, after the woman jumped like this, both she and Yen she ended up in a bad situation. She abandoned her wife and son. At present, the woman was just dressed as a servant girl. How could she have a son? Her smile was cold. Fifth sister, what are you laughing at? Xiao Wanru heard Xiao Jia's voice. Xiao Wanru turned her head to look at Xiao Jia. Seeing Xiao Jia looking at her in surprise, she knew that she had aroused Xiao Jia's suspicion. What can I do? I just feel strange. Why do they favor the womenfolk of the Minister of Labor's mansion? Originally, when we went to Yuhui Nunnery, we didn't have to bother anyone to go with us, Xiao Wanru said lightly. Xiao Jia raised her eyebrows and said, I'm afraid you don't know that Big Brother was talking about marriage with Xiao Shiran, the eldest lineal daughter of the Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Works. Talking about marriage? Xiao Wanru looked at her and asked. Of course it's about to be settled. If it weren't for the fact that mother is now in Yuhui nunnery to recuperate, the two families would have started to move together at this time. Xiao Jia smiled. From this point, it could be seen that the people of Zhao's mansion would definitely not like to see Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru fell silent for a moment and also understood Xiao Jia's implication. Xiao Huan was supposed to marry the eldest lineal daughter of the Minister of the Ministry of Works. She didn't know if Xiao Jia was there this time. Both families have acquiesced before, but I didn't expect that mother would get into trouble again and again. Fifth sister, if you see First Miss Xiao later, you need to be careful, lest you offend First Miss Xiao and make Grandma unhappy. Grandma has been preparing for Big Brother's marriage recently. Mother is not in good health now, so only Grandma can do it. Xiao Jia said with a bit of pleasure in Xiao Wanru's misfortune. Xiao Wanru was not surprised by Xiao Jia's behavior. In essence, Xiao Jia and Qi Rongji were somewhat similar. What kind of person is Miss Xiao? Xiao Wanru asked indifferently. Miss Xiao Shiran is the eldest lineal daughter of the Minister of the Ministry of Works. She is a good person. When she came to the mansion in the past, she had played with her sisters. She is amiable, and Big Brother is also amiable. They are a good match. However, First Miss Xiao is the miss of the minister after all. Don't offend her later. Xiao Jia's words sounded like a reminder to Xiao Wanru, but in fact, she was watching the show. Miss Xiao and Big Brother have known each other for a long time. Xiao Wanru didn't seem to hear the other implication in Xiao Jia's words. Xiao Wanru still asked calmly. She didn't know anything about Miss Xiao Shiran before. Now she should take the opportunity when Xiao Jia was willing to tell her more. She had a feeling that she would have dealings with First Miss Xiao after entering Yuhui nunnery. First Miss Xiao should be in the carriage of the minister's mansion in front, because Xiao Jia praised her. First Miss Xiao seemed to be a good person. Was she like Xiao Huan? She was not afraid of this miss of the minister. Now she and Chu Luchen had been engaged. No one would deliberately make things difficult for her, especially this First Miss Xiao, who seemed to be a good person. She would not deliberately make things difficult for her. Big Brother has known First Miss Xiao for a long time. I heard that it was Big Brother who took the initiative to find my mother and asked my mother to marry her. Big Brother likes her very much. Xiao Jia said proudly. They were both misses of Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru didn't know, but she knew. In this respect, she was much better than Xiao Wanru. Have you known her for a long time? Xiao Wanru was surprised. Of course. I heard from my mother that Big Brother likes First Miss Xiao very much and doesn't allow us to offend First Miss Xiao. When she came to the mansion to play, he asked us to accompany her. Xiao Jia proudly told him what she knew, feeling a sense of honor. Has First Miss Xiao been to the mansion? Xiao Wanru's eyes flickered and she asked with a smile. Of course, she has been here more than once. In fact, it was mentioned 3 years ago. But Big Brother's courtyard was burned at that time. My mother was so angry that she didn't mention it for the time being. This delay lasted for 3 years. Now that Big Brother has grown up, he can't wait any longer. So the two families secretly contact each other more. Xiao Jia squinted at Xiao Wanru and said, speaking of which, you were also there when the courtyard was burned. Madam spent a lot of effort on it. Thinking of this, Xiao Jia felt a little sorry. She had seen the objects in the courtyard. At that time, she was envious and jealous. Unexpectedly, the courtyard was burned in the end. Thinking of it now, she still felt very sorry. Of course, she didn't care about Xiao Wanru, who was almost burned to death at that time. At that time, the wedding house was burned, and now the wedding house was occupied by her. This time, she went up the mountain to ask Madame of Duke Xing's mansion for her mother's dowry. Madame of Duke Xing had used up a lot of it. If it was not enough, she could ask Madame of Duke Xing to make up for it with her own things. Madame of Duke Xing's mansion was supposed to leave her own things to her son. After thinking about it, Xiao Wanru found that it seemed difficult to get along with this first Miss Xiao. The carriage stopped in front of the Yuhui nunnery. Two servant girls came out of the carriage behind and waited in front of the carriage. Xiao Jia got out of the carriage first and said to a woman who got out of another large carriage warmly, "Miss Xiao, you really came. That's great." Second Miss Zhao Shiran, who had just gotten out of the carriage, smiled slightly and responded very warmly. Her eyes fell on Xiao Wanru, who had just gotten out of the carriage. This was the first time that she had seen the fifth Miss of Duke Xing's mansion. She had heard of this fifth Mississippi. When she went to Duke Xing's mansion before, although the misses accompanying her did not say anything bad about her, they could basically tell that they did not like this fifth Miss Xiao very much. However, the rumors outside were different. However, the fact that her maternal grandmother was Rui, and great elder princess, could not be ignored. Now that they had seen her in person, their eyes were filled with amazement. There were many beauties in the capital city, and each of them had their own merits. Among them, Xiao Yanru was the most outstanding. Zhao Shiran did not expect that the fifth Miss Xiao could be so beautiful. Her long and curly eyelashes fluttered twice, and her watery eyes, which were a little misty, seemed to be able to speak. Just a glance at her made people feel attracted. There was a little cherry lip on her pink and tender face, which was bright red and dazzling, which made her originally pure and charming. However, it was not the kind of coquettish charm that was deliberately made. Coupled with her indifferent purity, she suddenly caught people's eyes. Zhao Shiran suddenly understood why Prince Chen, who had always been unwilling to marry a wife, agreed to marry a wife. Chapter 8:18. Such a beautiful woman should not appear in this world, but she was actually standing right in front of him. Her attitude seemed respectful and polite, but her behavior was not deviant. When she saw him looking over, she bowed to him and then smiled slightly, her head slightly drooping down. She was not familiar with her, and no one introduced her, so it was normal for her to bow. Madame Zhao got out of the carriage and also saw Xiao Wanru not far away. After looking her up and down, she told Zhao Shiran, "Go and accompany second Miss Xiao and fifth Miss Xiao." "Yes, mother." Zhao Shiran nodded with a smile and turned to Xiao Jia, "Is this the fifth miss of your mansion?" "Yes, my fifth sister." Xiao Jia, said, and then raised her voice to Xiao Wanru, "Fifth sister, come here." Xiao Wanru walked over slowly. "Fifth sister, this is Miss Xiao of the minister's mansion." Xiao Jia, introduced, and then said to Zhao Shiran, "Miss Xiao, this is my fifth sister. When you came here before, she was not here. It's a coincidence that you can come with us this time." Fifth Miss. Zhao Shiran smiled slightly and bowed to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru bowed back generously and then bowed to Madame Zhao, who was standing aside. Madame Zhao looked Xiao Wanru up and down again and marveled in her heart. The fifth Miss Xiao in front of her was so beautiful. She had thought that Xiao Yanru was beautiful enough, but now she found that the fifth Miss Xiao was the most beautiful one. Xiao Yanru was as beautiful as a city-toppling beauty. "Fifth Miss, you don't have to be so polite. Your grandmother entrusted you to me, so you too can go with us. If there is anything, ask someone to tell me." Madame Zhao said politely with a smile. Xiao Wanru was now not only the granddaughter of Rui, and great elder princess, but also the future Princess Chen. "Thank you, madam," Xiao Wanru said softly with a smile. Her attitude made Madame Zhao very satisfied. She nodded and turned to go inside first. "Second Miss, fifth Miss, let's go in together," Zhao Shiran said to the two of them with a smile. The two of them nodded and followed Zhao Shiran inside. After taking a few steps, Zhao Shiran slowed down and said to Xiao Wanru beside him, "I heard that the fifth Miss has lived on the mountain for 3 years. Do you know where the scenery is better? Shall we go to enjoy the scenery later?" That's great. Xiao Jia's eyes lit up, and she immediately became interested. Xiao Wanru blinked her eyes in embarrassment and said, I'll ask the nun in the nunnery later. Although I've lived in the nunnery for 3 years, I've basically been cultivating in my own yard, so I'm not familiar with other places in the nunnery. Well, let's ask the teacher in the nunnery later. Zhao Shiran nodded and agreed, not making things difficult for Xiao Wanru anymore. Fifth sister, big sister used to live here for a period of time. After she went back, she knew everything in the Yuhui nunnery very well. How come you don't know anything after staying here for so long? Xiao Jia complained with dissatisfaction. Big sister is here to learn painting, so she naturally needs to know all the exquisite places in the nunnery. However, I'm here to observe filial piety, so I'm different from big sister. Xiao Wanru replied in a good temper. If she also knew all the beautiful places in the nunnery very well, how would others think of her? Xiao Wanru rolled her watery eyes and didn't know whether it was really unintentional or intentional. The fifth miss has observed filial piety for her parents on the mountain for 3 years, and her filial piety is amazing. My mother used to talk about you, saying that you were so filial at such a young age that you could cultivate in seclusion on the mountain for 3 years. At the age when you came up the mountain, I only knew how to play with other unmarried misses. I was very ignorant. Zhao Shiran praised Xiao Wanru softly. Xiao Jia was unhappy when she heard this. Miss Xiao, don't praise my fifth sister too much. She had to come up the mountain because of special circumstances. Speaking of filial piety, Miss Xiao is the real filial one. I heard that Miss Xiao specially embroidered a large screen for old Madame Zhao's birthday. It is said that it took her more than a year to make it. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and didn't answer her, as if the belittling of her in her words was not talking about herself at all. Zhao Shiran's gaze fell on her delicate little face again, and he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration again. It was a blessing for a woman to be so beautiful, and coupled with her extraordinary family background, she was truly blessed by the heavens. Now she found that she was so graceful. If she didn't answer her, it would seem that Xiao Jia was inferior. Second miss, you flatter me. These are just small skills. They can't be compared with the fifth Mississippi. Zhao Shiran shook her head and said with a smile. Then she turned to Xiao Wanru and said, I heard from old Madam of your mansion that the fifth miss and the second miss are going to visit Madam of Duke Xing. Why don't we go there first? Miss Xiao, aren't you going to accompany Madam Zhao? Xiao Wanru looked at Madam Zhao, who had walked ahead and asked. My mother is going to worship the Buddha first, so she doesn't need me to accompany her. I will accompany you to visit Madam of Duke Xing first. I was going to visit Madam, so it's just right for me to follow you. Zhao Shiran smiled slightly and looked very gentle. She didn't deliberately hide the special relationship between her and the Madam of Duke Xing. Although the two families hadn't made an official engagement, the people in the two mansions had their own relationship. If she really wanted to marry Xiao Hua, then she should go to the Yuhui nunnery to see the Madam of Duke Xing indeed. It was also very suitable for the three of them to go together. The place where the Madam of Duke Xing lived was very remote. It was neither her previous courtyard nor Xiao Yenru's courtyard. It was a very small courtyard, the most ordinary kind in the nunnery. Hearing someone knocking on the door, an old maid came to open the door. It was an old maid whom she didn't know. Xiao Jia was stunned for a moment and asked, Is it Madam of Duke Xing who lives in there? Only the Madam of Duke Xing is here. The old maid looked them up and down and answered. Yes, it's the Madam of Duke Xing's mansion. We want to see Madam, okay? Xiao Jia didn't know what was going on. She looked inside and didn't see anyone. Who asked you to come here? The old maid looked at them and then at the maids behind them and asked. It's old Madam who asked us to come here to see Madam. Can you do us a favor and leave after asking a few questions? Xiao Wanru could tell that the old maid not only served the Madam of Duke Xing but also had the responsibility of monitoring her, so she said with a smile. Wait a minute. The old maid closed the door in front of them. After a while, she opened the door again and walked out, stepping aside to let them in. When they entered the courtyard, they found that it was really small. There was only one main room, and there were wing rooms on the side, which were all very dilapidated. At first glance, they could tell that this courtyard was not specially chosen. Zhao Shiran looked at the courtyard and his brows furrowed imperceptibly. His mother was right, Madame Jiang had been locked up. After entering the main room and seeing the Madame of Duke Xing, in coarse clothes, not only Zhao Shiran but also Xiao Jia, was stunned. Xiao Jia, had always been nervous and flustered in front of the Madame of Duke Xing, Now when she saw the thin and capable Madame of Duke Xing, sitting there, who looked more than 10 years older, she couldn't recognize her for a moment. She almost thought that she had recognized the wrong person and was about to leave the room. What are you doing here today? The current appearance of the Madame of Duke Xing's mansion was like that of a different person. She didn't have the previous bearing, didn't wear gorgeous clothes, and didn't have the dignified Madame of Duke Xing lying on the bed with a gloomy face. She looked very bad. Seeing them come in, her face was gloomy. Zhao Shiran stepped forward and said respectfully to the Madame of Duke Xing, Madame Jiang, my mother took me to the Yuhui nunnery. She heard that you are recuperating, so she specially sent someone to visit you and brought some medicinal materials for recuperating. I hope you will accept them. Only then did Jiang Shi's gaze fall on Zhao Shiran's body. She had also recognized Zhao Shiran. The cold expression on her face slightly retreated, revealing a trace of a smile. Originally, it should have been to express her kindness, but in this situation, her kindness really couldn't be expressed. It looked very dry and stiff. Thank you very much, your mother. When I recuperate and come out, I will thank your mother. Madam, you are welcome. Zhao Shiran said. The servant girl behind her came over and placed a few gift boxes containing medicinal herbs on the table. Then, she politely retreated behind Zhao Shiran. She did not look around and behaved in an extremely well-behaved manner. Madam, I won't disturb you from chatting. I will wait outside. Zhao Shiran said again. After bowing to the Madame of Duke Xing, he looked at Xiao Jia, and Xiao Wanru gently and said, Second miss, fifth miss, you talk first. I will wait for you outside. Of course, she knew that Xiao Wanru and Xiao Jia, must have something to do here. With her as an outsider, it was inconvenient for them to say something. It was gentle and decent for her to take the initiative to leave. Seeing Zhao Shiran leave, the Madame of Duke Xing, on the bed said coldly, What are you doing here? My place is already in such a mess. Do I still need you two to come here? Without Zhao Shiran, the Madame of Duke Xing, didn't have to pretend to be gentle anymore. Her cold eyes fell on Xiao Wanru, as if a poisonous snake had glanced at her. Yu Jie took a step forward and stood in front of Xiao Wanru, for fear that the Madame of Duke Xing would go crazy and hurt Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru pulled Yu Jie's sleeve, indicating that she was fine, asked her to step back behind her, and said to the Madame of Duke Xing, who was lying on the bed, There is indeed something to do today. Old Madame asked us to come here to ask Second Madame for my mother's dowry. I heard that a large part of my mother's dowry is in the hands of Second Madame. Xiao Wanru said bluntly. Xiao Jia, shrank her neck. She had always been timid in front of the Madame of Duke Xing, so she didn't dare to say much at this time. She lowered her head and looked in front of her, pretending not to hear the questions of the Madame of Duke Xing and Xiao Wanru. Originally, she came here to make up the number, so she didn't dare to offend the Madame of Duke Xing's mansion. After being raised by the Madame of Duke Xing for so many years, Xiao Jia, was like a mouse seeing a cat when she met the Madame of Duke Xing. She didn't dare to say a word. Chapter 8:19. In my hands. Everything here is empty now. Where can I find anything else? If you think I have something you like here, you can take it. Madame of Duke Xing said with a shrill sneer. She looked around and reached out to point at Xiao Wanru, indicating that she could take whatever she liked. She was as mean as she could be, completely unlike the dignified madam she had seen before. "Second madam, this is old madam's order. If you can't explain it clearly, you can take all your things to make up for it. If the dowry left by second madam is not enough, you can take other things left in the yard to make up for it. This is old madam's order. If you have any dissatisfaction, you can talk to old madam." Xiao Wanru said with a slight smile. "What nonsense are you talking about? Those are my things." Madam of Duke Xing said angrily. "I don't know if it belongs to second madam. Old madam means that you should take out as much as you have lost. Let's make up for all your things first." Xiao Wanru calmly stated a fact. "How dare you touch my things? Those are all the things I left for Ru, and Huan, ahem." Madam of Duke Xing scolded harshly with her eyes almost spurting fire. Because she spoke too fast, she suddenly coughed violently. The old maid standing aside went over and gently patted her back. It took her a lot of effort to recover. Xiao Wanru watched all this calmly. Xiao Jia looked at Madam of Duke Xing uneasily, gritted her teeth and lowered her head. When Madam of Duke Xing finally stopped coughing, Xiao Wanru said slowly, "Second madam, if you want to give it to big sister, it's not necessary. Big sister has now become the emperor's treasure forest, so she should not need madam's dowry. As for big brother, his marriage has not been settled yet, so there is no need to prepare for it early." You are talking nonsense. How could Madam of Duke Xing roared in a hoarse voice. She didn't believe it. "Second madam, if you don't believe it, you can ask second sister." Xiao Wanru stepped back and made way for Xiao Jia, who was hiding behind her. "Say it." Madam of Duke Xing glared at Xiao Jia, and said. Xiao Jia, timidly wanted to lean behind Xiao Wanru, but under Madam of Duke Xing's fierce gaze, she had to raise her head and say timidly, "Madam, big sister, is now the emperor's treasure forest and has entered the palace." "What?" Mrs. Jiang suddenly sat up straight, stared at Xiao Jia, fiercely, and scolded, "Nonsense. I'm not talking nonsense. Eldest sister really entered the palace. Now it's the emperor's treasure forest." Xiao Jia had been standing there for a long time. Seeing that madam was no longer as powerful as she used to be, Xiao Jia, was not so flustered. She finally looked at madam and stammered out her words. "You're talking nonsense." Jiang Shi picked up the teacup in her hand and threw it at the two people's heads. Yu Jie reacted the fastest. She sent it herself. Could it be that she also asked me for it? If you insist on it, I won't give it to you even if you force me to death. She meant that she wouldn't return it even if she was beaten to death. This also indirectly admitted the meaning of Xiao Wanru's words. She did know it, but she also knew that Xiao Wanru couldn't do anything to her. If Xiao Wanru really forced her to death, Xiao Wanru's unmarried Princess Chen would also be in serious trouble. The royal family wouldn't want a daughter-in-law who was vicious enough to take someone's life. The old maid picked up the porcelain pieces on the ground and put them on the table before, and then stepped aside to make another cup of tea for Madame Jiang. Xiao Wanru was so angry that she almost laughed. It turned out that Madame Jiang was waiting for her here. Madame Jiang had made up her mind to repudiate the debt, and old Madame put the blame on her because she knew that she didn't dare to do anything serious. Madame Jiang looked so miserable, and now Xiao Yenru got into trouble. At this time, she was emotionally unstable and could easily get into trouble. She knew that she couldn't do anything to Madame Jiang, so she did what she did today. Moreover, Zhao Shiran was in the courtyard. Even if Madame Jiang really made up her mind, she wouldn't get into trouble. However, she had the fact that she forced her aunt to death. With such an established fact and the fact being presented to her maternal grandma could only give in. Even for the sake of her reputation, her maternal grandma didn't dare to push her too hard. As for outsiders, That was impossible. Zhao Shiran was Xiao Huan's future daughter-in-law. Even if she knew something, she wouldn't tell them at will. This could be regarded as giving them something to use against her without revealing it. It wouldn't affect the reputation of Duke Xing's mansion, but it could threaten her. If that was the case, then she would be in trouble now. Except for Madame of Zhang's people, everyone in the room was her own people. She turned her watery eyes and fixed her eyes on the shiny pieces of porcelain in Madame of Zhang's sleeve. Those pieces of porcelain had not been cleaned up just now and were put back on the table in front of Madame of Zhang. If Xiao Wanru had not been paying attention to them, she would not have seen that Madame of Zhang had secretly taken a piece of porcelain. When two people quarreled fiercely, no one would pay attention to such a small thing. In addition, Madame Zhang's action was naturally hidden. The broken porcelain pieces were not there before. They were broken by Madame Jiang when she was agitated. After the old maid picked them up, she was busy pouring water and putting them down casually. Everything seemed very real, as if it was natural without any flaws. Looking at Madame Jiang, who was agitated, Xiao Wanru suddenly turned around and left. "Second madam, please wait a moment. Miss Xiao just said that she had something for you and specially said that she would give it to you after second sister left. I'm going to tell Miss Xiao now." After saying that, she had reached the door. Xiao Wanru left decisively, which stunned Madame Jiang. She held a broken piece of porcelain in her hand and didn't know whether she should cut it off. What did Zhao Shiran bring for her? She even wanted to avoid Xiao Jia. Could it be that old madam had a new idea? Madame Jiang hesitated. As she hesitated, Xiao Wanru walked out of the room. Standing in the corridor, Xiao Wanru waved to Zhao Shiran and said, "Miss Xiao." Seeing Xiao Wanru calling her, Zhao Shiran came over and asked softly with a smile, "Fifth miss, what's the matter?" "Miss Xiao, can I trouble you to go in with me? Second sister accompanied me just now. There is no one else here." Xiao Wanru bit her lip with a little nervousness and uneasiness. Thinking of Zhao Jia's face being smashed just now and then looking at Xiao Wanru, Zhao Shiran felt that she understood. She nodded and stepped forward, "Okay." Originally, she really shouldn't go in. Even if the two mansions were discussing the marriage, she shouldn't go in with Xiao Wanru at this time. But just now, Xiao Jia went out with her hand pressed on her forehead, so it was understandable that Xiao Wanru felt flustered alone. She could not go in and just stay at the door to boost Xiao Wanru's courage. In fact, when she saw Madame of Duke Xing again, she was also shocked. The madam in front of her was no longer the noble and dignified madam with extraordinary bearing in her memory. Xiao Wanru entered the door again and stood at the door, far away from Madame Jiang. Standing at the door, Zhao Shiran looked at Xiao Wanru and then at Madame Jiang on the bed. Suddenly, she felt that something was wrong. When she wanted to leave, she saw Xiao Wanru reach out and hold her hand intimately. "Miss Xiao, I'll leave right away. Wait for me." After saying that, Xiao Wanru turned to Madame Jiang, who looked suspicious, and said softly, "Second madam, second sister, and I came here today to convey old madam's message. Old madam asked you to write down the things you sent out in the past and to whose house you sent them to. Those are my mother's dowry. Old madam wants to redeem all these things." As for whose money was used to redeem them, Xiao Wanru and Madame Jiang both knew. With old madam's character, how could she spend her own money? Of course, it was Madame Jiang's money. After saying that, Xiao Wanru did not wait for Madame Jiang to say anything. She bowed to Madame Jiang and then left with Zhao Shiran. During the whole process, she was not angry at all. It sounded like she just conveyed a message on behalf of old madam. As for other things, it had nothing to do with her. No one would feel anything wrong after hearing this, let alone hurt themselves. With Zhao Shiran as a witness, even if Madame Jiang really hurt herself at this time, it had nothing to do with her. She could not bear the reputation of trying to force her aunt to death. Chapter 820. Seeing Xiao Wanru leave with Xiao Shiran, who looked confused, Madame of Jiang came to her senses. She was so angry that she smashed the broken porcelain pieces in her hands on the ground and almost vomited blood with hatred. If she had acted faster, she would not have been in such a passive position and let the bitch escape again. "Madam, you were too slow just now," the old maid said coldly. I didn't expect the bitch to react so quickly and use Xiao Shiran to get away." Madame of Jiang gritted her teeth with hatred. How could she not realize it now? It was obvious that Xiao Wanru felt that something was wrong and called Xiao Shiran up before she took action. Her words were extremely gentle and did not force her at all. Even if she did anything extreme, Xiao Shiran would be her witness, so she couldn't be blamed. "Madam, there are many things you didn't expect. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here." The old maid stabbed her coldly and glanced at her with a little disdain. She didn't look like a servant who served her master at all. Madame of Jiang was so angry that she patted the edge of the bed hard and said with hatred, "When she comes next time." The old maid interrupted her rudely, "Madam, you are wrong again. If she comes next time, it seems that the fifth miss won't fall into the trap so easily next time. If there was a next time, she would never stay alone in the room and let others get hold of her. She will come to ask for the dowry." Madame of Jiang said repeatedly, "She will definitely come. She will definitely come." As long as Xiao Wanru came again, she would have a chance. If she had a chance to be alone with Xiao Wanru next time, she would directly take action without saying a word and then put all the blame on the bitch. She would force her aunt to commit suicide. Such a crime would be enough for the bitch to suffer. At least, she could not ask for all the things that fell into her hands. Madame of Jiang thought that Xiao Wanru would definitely come to interrogate her again. Old Madame had made it clear that this matter would fall on her now. She didn't believe that Xiao Wanru would be willing to give up Infanta Qinghua's dowry. As long as she came, she would have a chance. For her, such a plot was inevitable. But for Xiao Wanru, she would not give the Madame of Jiang the same chance since she had experienced it once. "Fifth miss, what happened just now?" Xiao Shiran looked at Xiao Wanru and asked softly. As they were walking back, Xiao Shiran thought of what had happened just now and asked one more question. After that, he smiled apologetically and said, "Fifth miss, don't mind it. I saw that second Miss Xiao was angry just now. It seems that something has happened." Xiao Wanru shook her head and said helplessly, "Miss Xiao, it's not a secret." Second aunt poured all the water on second sister and even smashed the cup on her head. Second sister was also angry and left. Xiao Jia was the daughter of a concubine, and she was the daughter of Madame of Concubine, who made a living under Madame of Concubine. Now Madame of Concubine had gone to the Yuhui nunnery to recuperate, but she still beat and scolded Xiao Jia. She directly smashed Xiao Jia's head with a swing of her hand. Along the way, Xiao Jia had also lost her temper because of being smashed. It was believed that many people had seen it. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. If Madame of Jiang committed suicide when she was alone in the room, Xiao Jia's matter would only be a trivial matter. Compared with Madame of Jiang's almost death, this kind of trivial matter could be easily smoothed out. In particular, Xiao Jia, a villain who was like a fence-sitter, would immediately contradict herself as long as she was given some benefits. She would even contradict herself and say that she had done it. At that time, she would be even more unable to explain herself. If it really came to that, for the sake of her reputation, her maternal grandma could only make concessions again and again and try to smooth out this matter. It was clear at a glance who would benefit from it, and it would have little impact on the whole Duke Xing's mansion. This was the plot of old Madame and Madame of Jiang. She didn't expect that they would plot against her like this when they were not together. She had underestimated old Madame and Madame of Jiang. Madame of Duke Xing. Is she always like this? Zhao Shiran gasped and said in a flustered tone. If she really married into Duke Xing's mansion, she would be Madame of Jiang's daughter-in-law. If Madame of Duke Xing was really such a person, it would be very difficult for her to be her daughter-in-law. Well, I don't know, but I was really scared just now, so I asked Miss Xiao to be a witness. I was afraid that second aunt would make trouble again and it would be hard for me to explain. Xiao Wanru said with an apologetic face and explained her abnormal behavior of deliberately calling Zhao Shiran over just now. I'm fine. Zhao Shiran said softly and shook her head. However, she said it a little reluctantly. Anyone who saw their future mother-in-law being so fierce would be scared and feel a little uncomfortable. Miss Xiao, you can go back first. Madame Zhao should also be worshipping Buddha now, so you don't have to accompany me anymore. Xiao Wanru stood at an intersection and said with a smile. She didn't mean to speak ill of Madame of Jiang in front of Zhao Shiran. Since Madame of Zhao's mansion asked her and Xiao Jia to follow the carriage of Zhao's mansion today, the marriage between the two mansions had basically been settled. How could she persuade them with a few words? It had been a long time since she heard that the marriage had been settled. After discussing for so long, and now old Madame came forward, it should be settled soon. Moreover, she couldn't see through Miss Xiao in front of her for the time being. I'm fine. My mother has servants to serve me. It's okay to accompany the fifth miss for a while. Zhao Shiran said. Miss Xiao, I'm afraid I have to go back. Second sister has been smashed like this and her clothes are wet. At this time, she should be waiting for me in the carriage. I have to go back as soon as possible. Xiao Wanru said with an apologetic look. Are you leaving now? Zhao Shiran asked. Yes, I'm going down the mountain now. I don't know how badly second sister is injured, so I really can't wait. Xiao Wanru sighed and said helplessly. You came up the mountain with us. If you leave like this, how can my mother and I explain to old Madame of your mansion? Zhao Shiran hesitated for a moment and looked a little hesitant. Why don't I go down the mountain with you? I can't let the two of you go down the mountain alone. Thank you for your kindness, Miss Xiao, but it's really okay. I've been on this road several times before, so I'm familiar with it. I have to find a clinic to treat second sister first. It's not good for her to be like this. Xiao Wanru shook her head and refused Zhao Shiran. Her words were reasonable, and Zhao Shiran couldn't come up with a way to object at the moment. She didn't know how badly Xiao Jia was injured, so she had no idea. She could only agree with Xiao Wanru and said, in this case, you should be careful when you go down the mountain. Okay, I got it. Xiao Wanru nodded and turned to leave with Yujie. Zhao Shiran watched Xiao Wanru leave with a smile, and then her face slowly darkened. Was Madame of Duke Xing really such a person? Her heart inexplicably became heavy. In the carriage, Xiao Jia looked angry. The tea foam had been cleaned up, but her clothes were still wet. She didn't come up the mountain for a banquet, so it was impossible for her to prepare an extra set of clothes. She saw a lot of people along the way. Fortunately, most of them were womenfolk. Otherwise, her reputation would be ruined. She pressed her forehead and saw Xiao Wanru come in unscathed. She couldn't help sneering and said, Madam is very kind to fifth sister. She actually let you come back like this. Madam is kind to second sister. Second sister is second Madam's daughter. Xiao Wanru said lightly and then sat down in the carriage. It was really ironic to say this at this time. Xiao Jia raised the corner of her eyes and said with a sharp look, Fifth sister, what do you mean by that? I don't mean anything. I just feel a little sad. Even in the Yuhui nunnery, second madam doesn't know how to restrain her temper. How will she deal with it in the future? Xiao Wanru said and looked up at Xiao Jia. Although Xiao Jia covered her forehead with a handkerchief, the red and swollen part was still clearly visible. Second sister, you don't have to be angry. After all, second madam is the legal wife. If second sister's concubine is also the legal wife, second sister can be as favored as big sister. She said this casually, but Yu Jie's heart skipped a beat when she heard it. Xiao Wanru didn't seem to see Yu Jie's suddenly pursed lips and continued to say casually, "Third aunt is powerless now. She is in poor health. If there is someone who can share the burden for her, it will be a good choice." Originally, it would be enough to ask an elder to do this kind of thing today, but we didn't. It's because there is no other available person in the mansion. There was indeed no available person in the inner courtyard of Duke Xing's mansion now. Madam of the second branch, Madame Jiang, had been in charge of the inner courtyard, and several concubines dared not have other thoughts. As for the third branch, there was no one available. "Fifth sister, do you think third aunt needs help?" Xiao Jia suddenly looked better, and even showed a smile on her face as she asked Xiao Wanru. "Of course she needs help. You know third aunt's health condition. Now third sister is in such a situation. If someone can help her, she will be willing to do it. Second sister, if you are willing to give up the marriage to third sister, I think third aunt will be very grateful to you." Xiao Wanru squinted at Xiao Jia with a faint smile. The meaning of her words made Xiao Jia's heart beat faster involuntarily, and her eyes were excited. In fact, she had already thought about this marriage. She already had a better marriage, so she naturally had to give up this marriage. Third aunt and others didn't know the reason. Seeing that she gave up this marriage, they would definitely thank her. If she put forward some conditions at this time. Xiao Jia didn't think in this direction at first, but she couldn't stand Xiao Wanru's words. At this time, her heart was boiling. If her concubine could really manage the inner courtyard, would she be promoted? She didn't dare to ask her father to abandon Madame and make her concubine the legal wife. She just wanted her concubine to be a co-wife. As long as she was a co-wife, she could also be regarded as a daughter of legal wife. If she entered Prince Cheng's mansion in the future, it would be easier for her to get a high position. Thinking of this, Xiao Jia's breathing also became rapid, and her eyes were enthusiastic. She was no longer cold and angry like before. In fact, she could still make use of this injury. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.